Beakly Woon was born into one of the strongest clans, but when his mother died, he could do nothing. Even his own father refused to seek revenge. Feeling betrayed, Beakly Woon walked away from his clan, and he swore to make every last enemy pay. With vengeance burning in his heart, he trained relentlessly. He climbed the ranks of the martial alliance, gaining power, respect, and fear, but he never forgot his vow. Now he forms a sect of his own, but the enemies ahead are powerful, and the path of revenge is never simple. Will Beakly Woon rise to reclaim justice? In the dead of night inside the clan mansion, a boy's frantic voice cried out, "Mother." He was Beakly Woon, the son of Beakly Gang, head of the Beakly clan. Now Beakly Woon was being held back by a subordinate, but he still shouted at his father, asking what on earth was happening. But his father kept his back turned and ordered in a low voice, "Is that enough noise? Get out of here." Hearing that, Beakly Woon grew even angrier. What did his father mean by that? Then he was even more stunned when he heard his father continue, insisting that not a single word about this be let out. "Also, our Beakly clan will not seek revenge." Beakly Woon, almost crazed, demanded, "Father, what are you saying?" Finally, Beakly Gang couldn't stand it and snarled, "Everything is for the clan and righteousness. Beakly Woon, don't be foolish and ask for revenge." Beakly Woon wanted to say more, but the subordinate behind him held him tight. He ground his teeth and spat, "You're not even able to avenge your wife who died gruesomely, can't even speak a single defiant word. And you call yourself a man? Father, you are no longer fit to be called human." Those words dripped with hatred. Finally, the door closed, extinguishing what little hope Beakly Woon had left. In the middle of the night, he stepped out, telling himself, "I must leave this Beakly clan. There's nothing here I wish to keep. With my current strength, seeking revenge would be suicide. I must build a power that no one dares to underestimate, found a new sect, create my own force. Then when that force grows strong, I will take revenge on those involved in Mother's death and on those who knew the truth and stayed silent. I will avenge her even if it takes decades." Scene shifts to 12 years later at a villa blazing fiercely. Inside, a man's pleading voice rang out, Wait, it was my fault, just report it to the Murim Alliance like that. You want something too, don't you? Say it and I'll give you anything." A man, cornered, hurriedly told the person before him. But Beakly Woon only glanced at his blood-stained, nearly broken sword and gave no answer. The other guy pressed him, "This is a great offer for you, isn't it?" Now Beakly Woon finally spoke, "Well, I do want one thing." Hearing that, the man chuckled and asked, "Oh, and what do you want?" Calmly smiling, he replied, "That person's life." The man's face went pale when he realized he'd been tricked. Hey, jokes have their limits. Beakly Woon lowered his head and sneered, muttering, "Fine, if you won't give it. Then I'll take it myself." With that, a murderous aura emanated from him as he raised his sword toward the man. Cornered, the man screamed, "You dead dog dare mock me? I'll tear you to pieces so you won't die whole." But no sooner had he said that than Beakly Woon appeared behind him. His eyes flashed with admiration, such a venomous mouth to match his face, huh? Then a lethal strike sent the man flying a great distance. Beakly Woon stood still and watched a column of smoke rising, his face icy, showing no emotion. The next moment, the man leapt from behind and howled, "I'll throw your head to the Murim Alliance." In response, Beakly Woon only gripped his sword tightly, channeling his own Kai into it. Then a sharp, clean sword stroke sliced through the air. Beakly Woon's face was stone cold as he swung his sword and cleaved the man's body cleanly in two. Outside the villa grounds, someone stood there, looking up and staring inside. A moment later, Beakly Woon burst through the front door and strode outside. She presented a paper with both hands and said politely to him, "Master, someone asked that this be handed to you after everything was over." Beakly Woon's face was splattered with blood, but he still bared his teeth in a grin and replied to her, "Thanks a lot, Moyang Haegan. Sorry to keep you waiting. You've worked hard." She was stunned for a moment and stammered back, "Please wipe off your blood first. It's nothing really." Then Beakly Woon unfolded the paper Haegan had handed him. He touched his face and wiped up some blood, then used 2 fingers to write a few characters on the paper with his blood. As he wrote, he pondered, "That's it. Isn't this supposed to be a new beginning?" Having finished, Beakly Woon tossed the scroll back to Haegan and then and said, "Deliver this to the Murim Alliance. I'm retiring." Haegan immediately asked, "So you're going back to your hometown now?" Beakly Woon replied as he walked away, "Yes, my goals here are complete." Haegan continued, "Master, if I retire someday, may I come visit you?" Beakly Woon didn't bother to turn but answered, "Of course. Whenever you're bored to the point of madness, come find me. But you must tell me where to find you, right?" The key point Beakly Woon seemed to have forgotten. Then he turned back, smiling brightly, and said, "Hubei Province, Hulong County." Scene shifts to another time. Beakly Woon now stood on a red carriage looking ahead. He lowered his eyes slightly and reflected, It truly has been a long stretch of time. I left the clan and joined the Miram Alliance to build up my power, rising by means of my own martial arts creation to the rank of master. It's been exactly 12 years since I joined, and at last I'm ready to have my own sect. Over the years, I saved enough silver to buy an estate, and by luck, I snagged a bargain. Everything's gone surprisingly smoothly. The more he thought about it, the more delighted he became, laughing until he trembled. Heavens must be helping me, Beakley Woon said, pointing up at the sky as he laughed loudly. Seeing him like that, the old carriage driver asked curiously if the young master had some good news. Beakley Woon waved it off and explained, I'm just a little excited. Then he recounted his plan. I'm on my way to sign the contract to buy an estate to prepare for founding a sect. It's my life's ambition. The old man smiled and offered congratulations, so he's a young sect master after all. But the estates for sale around here are only a few. Could it be that haunted estate? Saying that, the old man suddenly remembered something. Beakley Woon, curious, asked, why were you mumbling to yourself? The carriage driver, not wanting to scare him, replied casually, nothing, best wishes for your founding and may all go smoothly. Still basking in his joy, Beakley Woon said, thanks, there's only the contract to sign, nothing could possibly go wrong. Beakley Woon's laughter echoed across the area, but a moment later his expression turned dark on the spot. Beakley Woon hesitated and asked the man beside him, is it this place? The seller next door keeps praising it. What is it like? Vast, right? Beakley Woon called to him, hey, Yuryong. Long time no see, looks like you've gone soft in the head. How dare you try to trick me? Yuryong hurriedly protested. No, this place was hard for me to find too. Take a look around and then the company can decide. Beakley Woon followed his lead and stepped inside. There's not even anything to peek at, let alone clean. Yuryong bowed to catch his breath and said, just take a look around first and I'll explain. The main compound and the annex combined have a total of 45 rooms, 5 sparring arenas and all 4 small arenas and 1 large one. Just divide them by intended use. Beakley Woon heard that and turned to ask, what sect used to be here? 5 arenas isn't ordinary, but even I don't know the specifics. This estate is very old, I'm only the seller. Just a little renovation and you could found a sect easily, right? Beakley Woon let his muttering slide and thought to himself that sounded right, but then he asked bluntly, so what's the problem with this place? Yuryong rubbed his hands and laughed. Beakley Woon, you really are straightforward. It's nothing huge except everyone who bought this estate ended up dead. Beakley Woon froze and asked, dead how? Yuryong continued, moreover, they all died of stopped hearts with no external wounds. They say they all died on the night they bought the estate, so people rumor it's haunted. They tried hearing guards and Taoist priests, but none worked. Hearing this, Beakley Woon glared at Yuryong and growled, and you're trying to pawn this cursed thing off on me. He hurried to explain that's why the price is only a fraction of market value, 5, no, only 4 silver ingots. Sure enough, as soon as he said that, Beakley Woon's attitude shifted. He clapped a hand on the man's shoulder, set the money bag down, and said, you should have said so sooner, friend, I nearly misunderstood you. Yuryong took the money and produced a deed scroll. Truly Beakley Woon, befitting a former captain of the Thuong Thiern squad who exterminates ghosts, take the ownership certificate. Beakley Woon took it, a notification popped up, and he confirmed the transfer of the ownership certificate. The moment he touched it, a chill ran through him. Yuryong noticed and asked, you all right? Beakley Woon answered nonchalantly. Then Yuryong stepped out the door and called back one more line. My part's done. If you're still alive tomorrow morning, come find me. Fine, agreed, Beakley Woon replied. Beakley Woon leaned against the main gate and watched Yuryong's figure carrying the money bag walk away. When he was out of sight, Beakley Woon turned back inside and sighed. Immediately afterwards, Beakley Woon's joyful shout echoed through the estate. At last I have an estate of my own. Great, now I just need disciples. He laughed and slapped the nearby pillar. But the slap sent dust flying everywhere. Beakley Woon bent over and muttered, first things first, I have to clean this place up. All day long Beakley Woon diligently scrubbed the floors throughout the estate. He pinched his nose and swept dust out of every nook and cranny. Although he was cleaning alone, Beakley Woon felt very happy. Carrying a bucket of water, he climbed the steps muttering, just need to finish the main hall and we're done, right? Come on, hurry up so we can rest. With that, he pushed open the main hall door with force. But then he noticed an object placed right in the center of the room. What's that? Beakley Woon propped his chin and looked at the sword before him, wondering, left behind by the previous owner. He picked it up to inspect it. It's truly a gift from heaven. If I sold this, it'd fetch a small fortune. But the moment he drew the sword from its scabbard, a blue light appeared before Beakley Woon's eyes. Immediately, the entire main hall was bathed in white. He stared in astonishment and asked, "Where am I?" A notification popped up before his eyes. The appraiser is a martial artist. The purpose is to establish a sect. The overall rating is level 21. The highest rank among all previous appraisals. Beakley Woon hadn't even adapted yet. What the heck is this now? When he suddenly noticed something hurtling toward him. Beakley Woon leapt aside in haste, but it still grazed his cheek a little. What he dodged slammed into the ground and cracked a hole. Another notification appeared, adjusting the test's difficulty. Seeing that, Beakley Woon recalled Yuryong's words from this morning. They said the buyers all died on the night they bought the estate. He sneered with a dawning realization. So that's how it is. That iron orb must have been fired from there. He looked up at a cannon barrel above as the earlier notification updated with new text. The test would start at extreme difficulty. Beakley Woon brandished his sword and strode forward proudly. "All right, testing me? Fine, bring everything you've got, I'll block it all." It seemed he'd entered the void trial zone. The cannon fired again. The first scene that appeared was Beakley Woon swinging his sword straight ahead, shouting as he charged, "Let me show you, being the merchant group leader of the Muram Alliance isn't something just anyone can do." "Come on then," he said, thrusting his sword forward to meet it. At that moment, looking at his sword, he noticed something even more serious. The blade was chipped in many places. Then a cannon high above suddenly fired a volley, forcing him to tumble several times to dodge. Just as Beakley Woon expected it to fire again, the barrage stopped. Beakley Woon wondered aloud, "Stopped, looks like they won't attack this area. So I can breathe for now." But while he was pondering the sword, he suddenly saw a fresh sword planted nearby. He muttered, "Another one for me." Beakley Woon grabbed the new sword and snorted, thinking the test was surprisingly flexible. He then raised his head to look ahead, contemplating something. Beakley Woon dashed forward, smiling inwardly. "They're not attacking here means there's something on this side they have to protect." He was charging straight under a cannon barrel. But then not one, but many more cannon barrels appeared before him. Startled, Beakley Woon recoiled slightly. Just a second later, the 3 cannons on the left opened fire at him. The 4 cannons on the right promptly joined in as well, because of course they did. Beakley Woon continued rushing, swinging his sword to slice through each incoming cannonball. He swung his sword back and caught one cannonball, then swung again to block another strike. Beakley Woon suddenly roared, gathering strength as he pressed forward. He nimbly tilted his body to the side to dodge a projectile, and moments later another beam of light rushed toward his face. Immediately the ground beneath where Beakley Woon stood exploded with a boom. Smoke shot up all the way to the ceiling. The whole room filled with thick smoke, and then small sparks of lightning suddenly crackled from the blast site. It seemed Beakley Woon had successfully evaded the projectile. He was preparing to unleash a technique, the unique Phantom Statue Master move. With that, he burst forward at top speed. He formed a glowing sword and leapt high. This was the Sock and Gyert technique. Beakley Woon ran so fast the air sliced as he charged. Then his glowing sword plunged deep into the ground. A second later it exploded. The shock threw Beakley Woon backwards. When he regained his balance and knelt, it seemed the room had begun to disappear. Beakley Woon still gripped his sword and looked around, wondering, is the iron orb still here? But then the sword in his hand gradually dissolved and drifted away. A notification appeared before Beakley Woon. The test has ended. He surveyed the surroundings and muttered, "Done already? The estate seems to have changed. It's as clean as if it were just swept." Soon another notification popped up. "You have passed the martial trial. The estate feature has been unlocked to the highest level." Another sword hovered in the air, making Beakley Woon a bit puzzled. "What is this? Just give me this sword too." "Fair enough, after putting me through that, the least they can do is give me something back." He read the next notice. "The test will conclude after you name the estate." Beakley Woon asked, "You're only telling me to name it now?" Then he chuckled and muttered, "I've long since decided the estate's name. The heavens must side with justice. I'll call it Righteous Heavens Sect." Name set. A notification appeared. The estate's name is now Righteous Heavens Sect. At the same time, a slightly glowing character for heaven appeared on Beakley Woon's hand. The system then announced, "From now on," but Beakley Woon interrupted, "I don't care what kind of ghost or demon haunts this place, show yourself now." The system reported the Sect system has officially started. Beakley Woon turned in shock and asked, "What?" Down a long corridor, someone seemed to be rushing along. Beakley Woon angrily pushed open a door to a room and shouted, "Yuryong." The man writing inside the room was Yuryong. He looked puzzled and asked, "Oh, Beakley Woon, what's wrong? Everything okay last night?" Before he could say more, Beakley Woon ran up, grabbed Yuryong's collar and demanded, You never said this thing would pop up, did you? It's been trailing me since last night. I told you only the buyer in the contract gets to see it. What the hell is this? For heaven's sake, he cried, pointing at the system notification hovering nearby. But Yuryong stared where Beakley Woon pointed and asked, puzzled, I don't see anything. Did you hit your head last night or something? After a while, Beakley Woon flopped into a chair and muttered curses. Yuryong responded with a wry smile, if you don't like it, I can just take the estate back, right? But Beakley Woon firmly refused, no, I need the estate for now. Yuryong sighed, then you must prepare for the Sect's founding ceremony. There'll be a lot to do. Beakley Woon then told him his plan. First, I want to have ritual robes made. Do you know a good place? About 20 sets. Hearing this, Yuryong casually replied, I can recommend some fabric shops nearby, but it's hard to get a deal now. Everyone's trying to partner with Elo Dragon Hall. Beakley Woon repeated, surprised, Elo Dragon Hall? Yuryong cut in, you must have heard of them. Elo Dragon Hall is the trading guild that has supplied fabrics to the imperial court for generations, so their influence in the martial world is enormous. Whether righteous or wicked, even the great sects are said to give Elo Dragon Hall a wide berth. And of course with your wallet, Elo Dragon Hall's fabrics are only a dream, so no need to worry about it. He replied, a bit flustered, it's true, but it still sounds off somehow. Yuryong continued that he didn't know if they'd agree to trade since the estate is rumored to be haunted. Just go to the fabric district and see. After he finished, the system beside them displayed a line, calling people mere devils and ghosts is too much. Beakley Woon snapped at it to shut up. But after hearing the whole story, he was still puzzled. Wait, why did rumors spread so fast when the contract was signed only yesterday? As he spoke, Beakley Woon suddenly paused as if realizing something. Yuryong trembled as he raised his teacup and said, isn't it said that rumors fly thousands of miles without wings? How could Beakley Woon not realize? He radiated murderous intent and glared at him, asking, did you spread the rumor? Yuryong tried to save face. After all, it could be considered publicity for the sect, right? Let the rumor be you're alive and well, isn't that strong proof of safety? There won't be any problem. Hearing that, Beakley Woon was furious. It's all your fault for bringing this haunted estate here. A moment later, despite Beakley Woon smiling and greeting kindly, a cold voice rang out, not selling, not selling. Can't sell it. With that, the person slammed the door shut without mercy. Beakley Woon couldn't chase after them in time and shouted, at least hear me out. No sooner had he spoken than a bowl was thrown straight at his face, accompanied by a sharp cry, I told you it's not for sale, get out of my sight, you cursed haunted thing. Beakley Woon stood frozen, trembling with anger as he muttered, how did the rumor spread so fast? Hold it, stay calm, can't let the first impression be that of a madman. Just then he heard noises nearby. Let go. A boy clutched a man's pant leg and shouted, no, you promised to cure my sister. The man snapped angrily, you little brat. At that moment, another old man ran over and asked, Sueo, aren't you Sueo? What on earth happened? Hearing that, the kid accused, Master, these fighters cheated me. They said they'd heal my sister and took all my money. Being accused, the man shouted and struck Sueo in the face. Your sister has no cure left, that's why the clinics gave up. The old man's indignant voice rang out, looking at your clothes, you seem from White Sword Sect, how could you treat a child so brutally? At the same time, another man stood there, he was from White Sword Sect, and told the other to deal with it quickly and don't let the sect master hear. Receiving his accomplice's nod, he grinned wickedly, drew his sword and said, you told him to go earlier, but he didn't. Old Chingamyong glared back and replied, so you insist my hands must be stained with blood. Just then, the man heard a voice call from behind him. Immediately after came a flying kick straight to his face. The kicker was Beakley Woon. He sent the man tumbling to the ground, and the accomplice stood frozen, watching. Then the accomplice urgently shouted in anger, Father, ask who is that? Beakley Woon stood between the old man and the boy and replied in a deep voice, although this title isn't something to boast about yet, when someone asks you should at least answer politely, shouldn't you? The sect master of Righteous Heaven Sect, I am Beakley Woon. The man from White Sword Sect lunged again, shouting, what nameless little sect dares to show up and interfere with White Sword Sect's affairs? Beakley Woon nimbly dodged to the side. He swung his hand back, seeming to prepare a counterattack. Sure enough, Beakley Woon flashed a strike down, cutting straight into the man's forearm. After watching the man writhe on the ground in pain and fall silent, he continued, judging others by a sect's reputation isn't something one should do, especially when you don't even know the other's true ability. At that moment, another fellow from White Sword Sect charged in, shouting, bastard, you want to take on White Sword Sect? You know what that means, right? He threatened as he rushed toward Beakley Woon. But Beakley Woon simply spat out two words, I don't know, and then punched him straight in the face. Immediately after, the outcome for this man was no different from the previous one. The remaining man, seeing this, asked Beakley Woon, I heard the merchant group of the Muram Alliance bought a haunted estate. Could that be you? My head's spinning. How far has this rumor spread? At the same time, Yuryong, sitting at home, choked on his drink and splashed tea all over his face. Beakley Woon pointed at him and asked softly, and because of that rumor, I couldn't buy the ritual robes. What now? So stop mouthing from behind and jump in already. Having said that, he cocked a thumb arrogantly to taunt him. Seeing this, the man couldn't hold back. He leapt up yelling, this is clearly a challenge to White Sword Sect. Let me teach you the price of arrogance. He swung down, but Beakley Woon was faster and avoided the blow. Just then, the White Sword Sect man who had been down also got up and rushed to attack Beakley Woon from behind. Beakley Woon glanced to both sides as two men lunged at him simultaneously, yet remained calm and fearless. He quickly struck one man's face with his left elbow, then hooked an upward punch straight into the second man's stomach. The man Beakley Woon hit cried out in pain and collapsed to the ground. At that moment, his sword planted itself into the ground beside them, and Beakley Woon said, fine, if this is a challenge, then consider it won. I always welcome a spar. Come to Righteous Heaven's Sect. If you don't want to end up worse off, you'd best stop here and get out of my sight. After driving off the White Sword Sect men, Beakley Woon turned to the old man and boy and asked, are you all right? Seo, quick and observant during the fight, smiled and asked, you need someone to sew ritual robes, right? Beakley Woon said, is that so? My sister sews very well, sir, so please save my sister. After saying this, the boy bowed deeply to the ground in full respect. Beakley Woon hurriedly declined, no, that should be a physician's matter. Just then the system appeared beside him again. It displayed two lines before Seo, though the boy couldn't see them, indicating a lead on a new partner, ranked at Tier 3. Seeing that, Beakley Woon curled a sardonic smile and muttered, Tier 3 sounds pretty high, huh? Tell me more details. Seo recounted in a mournful tone, my parents died last year, only my sister and I remain. Luckily, my sister is very skilled with her hands, so we haven't starved. But not long ago, she fell ill with a strange disease that makes her limbs as cold as ice. Hearing this, Chin Gamyong couldn't help but exhale. A disease that makes limbs cold as ice? Beakley Woon glanced at him curiously and respectfully asked, Master Chin, may I ask? Chin Gamyong hesitated for a moment, then said in a dry tone, I have a small fabric shop in the neighboring village. I often gave work to this boy's sister, but recently we've lost contact and I'm worried. After a while, Seo ran quickly toward the thatched house. The boy shouted, here. The moment he stepped inside, Seo couldn't help but look around suspiciously. This place won't collapse, will it? Just then Seo excitedly announced, Sister, I found the demon-hunting warrior who will exorcise the place. Beakley Woon forced a smile and said, no, I told you I'm not. Inside, Seowa is warming her hands right in the fire. Seeing that scene, he was almost stunned. She blinked and turned to Beakley Woon, the corner of her mouth twitching. Who is that? Over here, he was still in shock, putting hands and feet into fire like that and remaining calm. The situation seems much worse than I thought. At the same time, the system transmitted a notice. The fire's heat and the cold chi in her limbs are neutralizing each other. Hearing this, Beakley Woon wondered, is this a side effect of yin cold chi technique? After a brief silence, he politely asked, are you Seowa? Your brother asked me to come save you. She replied blankly, Seo. Beakley Woon couldn't help but sigh. Yes, she's pitiful, isn't she? Seowa gave a faint, wry smile. Yes, if I don't do this, my limbs will suffer cold burns, he asked, doubtful. Cold burns. Meanwhile, Chin Gamyong anxiously stepped forward. Seowa, what's going on? She only gave a small smile. Master, why are you here? He hurriedly said with concern. I worried when you suddenly went silent. She forced a smile. I'm sorry, it's because of my condition. At that moment, Beakley Woon urgently proposed, may I take your pulse for a moment? Seowa warily turned. Pulse diagnosis, he nodded in confirmation. Yes, I want to check a bit. Seeing that, she did not hesitate and reached out her hand to Beakley Woon. Please, sir. The instant he placed his fingertip on Seowa's palm, a stream of chi immediately surged out. The system hurriedly warned, absorbing excessive yin chi, this is dangerous. Beakley Woon replied with annoyance, I know, stop shouting. Analysis result, excessive yin chi has invaded the subject's body. He vaguely sensed in his subconscious that this chi was. After a moment, Beakley Woon spoke softly, I roughly understand the situation. Seowa showed an excited expression. Really? Not wanting to keep them waiting, he quickly explained, an extreme yin body is an abnormal constitution that attracts yin chi from the surroundings and accumulates it within the body. I've heard the Sword Empress also had this constitution. She was briefly surprised. The Sword Empress, he continued. Yes, the master of the Sword Pavilion, one of the 10 heavens. She stood at the pinnacle of swordsmanship. Siowa nodded in understanding. I don't know much, but it sounds extraordinary. Beakley Woon let out a sigh. For martial artists, this is a blessed constitution, but right now she is attracting too much yin qi. So yang qi is insufficient. If this continues, she'll be dead within 3 months. She must vaguely feel it herself by now. Contrary to expectation, Siowa smiled calmly. Indeed so. There's no cure. Siowa spat angrily. Lies, it's all made up. You're just like those earlier men. At this, Chen Gamyong suggested, what about using spirit elixirs? He shook his head slightly. Only temporary measures. The condition will worsen again. He kept thinking, the key is yang qi, how to restore inner power steadily. The system then spoke into Beakley Woon's subconscious. He growled inwardly, already told you to be quiet. It continued analyzing, use essence to boost the sect members' recovery ability. Recovery power, members' stamina and inner power recovery rates increase. Costs 50 essence, usable immediately. Li Yun couldn't help but feel a bit unsettled at restoring both stamina and inner power. The system continued, challenge task, recruit the first disciple. He froze. A disciple, wait. A calculating beat rang in Beakley Woon's mind. Treating Siowa and recruiting a disciple at the same time would be killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Immediately he blurted, I'm not certain, but I think I've found a way. Beakley Woon suddenly reached his hand forward. Siowa, become my disciple of the righteous heaven sect. Hearing that, she looked at him in confusion. A disciple of the warrior lord, why so suddenly? Beakley Woon curled his lip and said in a low tone, just trust me this once. Siowa was wary, someone who'd never studied martial arts being told to join a sect out of the blue. A thought echoed in her mind. Those in the martial world preach chivalry with their mouths, but in truth they're selfish, looking out for themselves, approaching as if to help. But in the end they only look for a route to save themselves. My parents also died because they were dragged into their fights. This person will probably pretend to help and then shove me aside. He expects me to become a martial artist. Siowa's gaze fell on Beakley Woon's rough, dry hand. Seeing it, she froze. His hand bore cold burns. He looked at Siowa steadily. This was nothing if he could cure her illness. In that moment, her heart began to race. Could this person be different? Siowa smiled crookedly. I have no other choice if it can cure me. She silently made her decision and resolved to trust him one last time. Then Siowa clasped his hand tightly, a smile tugging at her lips. Please take care of me. The system immediately announced, challenge task complete, first disciple recruited. User is suffering cold burns on the hands due to exposure to yin qi. Consume essence to begin using recovery power. At that moment, a rush of warmth flowed up. Siowa's eyes widened in astonishment. No way, my hands are warming up. The screen lit up, sect members' stamina and inner power recovery rates slightly increased. Seeing this, Beakley Woon sneered, good, it's working. Begin applying recovery power. Spiritual energy concentrated, and the sect members' inner power was restored. At the rare sight, he unconsciously smiled. Yang qi was returning. The sect members' yang qi was being restored. Moments later, Siowa stared at her palms in amazement. She muttered under her breath, unable to believe her hands and feet were gradually recovering. Siowa rushed over, hugged Siowa tightly, and shouted, Sister. Chen Gamyong beside them curiously asked, Did you use healing qigong? Beakley Woon smirked. It was something like that. Hearing that, the old man couldn't help but laugh. Chen Gamyong sighed in admiration. Thanks to you, I witnessed a fine show. You really suit my tastes. Now I understand why the Murim Alliance leader favors you. He frowned slightly at the man. Does this elder know the Murim Alliance leader? By the flickering fire, Chen Gamyong's voice rose. A formal introduction, though belated. My name is Chen Gamyong. I am the master of Elo Dragon Hall, or calling me Elo Dragon Hall's master is probably simpler. That same night at White Sword Sect, the atmosphere was tense as So Yohuang was reprimanding his lackeys. He stood upright and looked them up and down, saying, I hear you were embarrassed by some upstart sect. The underlings could only tremble and kneel. Yes, master, we're truly sorry. Suddenly, So Yohuang slammed a long wooden plank down onto the hand of the man who had spoken, causing him to cry out in pain. He snarled angrily, this is just a warning. Compared to the humiliation I'm about to suffer, your little pain is nothing. The lackey panicked and kept apologizing. I sincerely beg your forgiveness, master. Not satisfied with the punishment, So Yohuang ordered them dragged into the punishment chamber. Some uninvolved people immediately obeyed, yes, master. The guilty ones were terrified and continued to plead, no, master, please spare me this once. One fellow kept begging, master, please give your servant another chance. But even the repeated, heartfelt cries of master couldn't shake So Yohuang's mind. He coldly turned his back in anger and then said, "Beakly Woon of the Righteous Heaven Sect. It seems we must prepare a truly grand welcome, right?" As master of the White Sword Sect, so Yo-Wang apparently couldn't swallow this grudge. It'll be interesting to see what sort of person he is. Back with Beakly Woon, he remained silent after hearing the old man's identity. He couldn't believe his ears and repeated it. The senior before him was the master of Elo Dragon Hall. Beakly Woon murmured in admiration, "I suspected you weren't ordinary, but I didn't expect you to be the master of Elo Dragon Hall." Hearing this, Chingamyong immediately rubbed his chin and looked smug. Those around them were also surprised. Seowa was the first to react. She quickly bowed and apologized. "I didn't recognize the hall master. I was rude before." Chingamyong laughed heartily and waved his hand. "It's all right, Seowa. No need for excessive formality." Then, at that moment, Chingamyong made an offer. "Beakly Woon, what do you think? Join our Elo Dragon Hall. We will back you in everything you desire." Faced with his invitation, Beakly Woon's expression did not change. He quietly assessed a massive merchant consortium supplying robes and brocades to the imperial court. At that moment, the system displayed new information. Discovered lead on a new partner, Tier 1, Elo Dragon Hall. From what he learned, Beakly Woon judged it a gathering place of countless experts, so formidable that even major sects would be wary. A single word from its master could sway both the Murim alliance and the unorthodox Murim. Weighing pros and cons, he still hesitated a little. Truly a golden opportunity, but it's not the future I desire. After a moment's thought, Beakly Woon smiled and replied, "I'm very grateful for your offer, but I must decline." He emphasized, "Because I have just recruited my first disciple." Receiving an answer he didn't want, Chingamyong was somewhat displeased. "You dare refuse an offer from Elo Dragon Hall me?" Beakly Woon replied without hesitation, "Yes, but instead grant me a chance to cooperate with Elo Dragon Hall. If you agree, I will bring renown befitting Elo Dragon Hall." Hearing this, Chingamyong suddenly felt offended. "I showed you a bit of goodwill and you already act arrogant before me. Someone like you claiming you'll bring honor to Elo Dragon Hall." Facing his imposing presence, Beakly Woon did not cede an inch. He continued to persuade, 10 years. In that time, I will build a sect to rival the 9 leading orthodox sects and outshine the unorthodox schools. Isn't that a very sweet deal?" Seeing his overconfidence, Chingamyong's mild warning sounded ridiculous. A sect not yet even founded promising such fame in 10 years, Beakly Woon reaffirmed, "Yes, exactly so." As if hearing a joke, Chingamyong burst out laughing. "You sure know how to spout nonsense, don't you?" Beakly Woon remained steadfast in his idea despite Chingamyong's derision. "The fame I promise is not for the hall master." Hearing this, Chingamyong stopped laughing and suddenly grew serious. "What? Are you joking with me?" He slowly revealed his true plan. "Please introduce the hall master's disciple. What I want to trade for is the future of Elo Dragon Hall." Upon learning Beakly Woon's intention, Chingamyong rubbed his chin and made a decision. "Very well." He continued, "I will soon send one of my disciples to your sect. Whether a true bond forms will be decided by the disciple herself." After agreeing, he still warned carefully, "But if in the future your sect acts in a way that disappoints me, you will bear corresponding consequences." He displayed the imposing aura of a mighty dragon to intimidate him. Seeing that Beakly Woon would not be outdone, he showed the imposing presence of a white tiger to face him. "You needn't worry about that," he said. After the negotiation, Chingamyong stood and said, "Good, let the pact be decided then." Then suddenly he shouted, startling Beakly Woon, "Bring the brocades here." Saying that, he quickly stepped out to meet his underlings. When they saw Chingamyong emerge, they all called out, "Has the hall master just come out?" Before leaving, Chingamyong instructed, "Consider this a deposit, take it. It's a reward for today's fine performance. Do not refuse." Seeing the pile of goods, both Beakly Woon and Seowa felt quite pleased. He even mentally estimated the value of this gift. After a brief, quiet pleasure, he quickly expressed his gratitude. "I accept." At the same time, he scanned around. "So many formidable figures, I only sensed them faintly. I didn't expect them to be so close." After the bustle, the sun sank behind the mountain. Chingamyong sat alone in the carriage, thinking, "Daring to claim you'll bring me fame, such arrogance, they really are cut from the same cloth." After a while, he suddenly called out, "Hey, driver, respond at once." "Yes, hall master." He ordered the driver to go. "I want to visit an old friend, head to the unorthodox alliance." Chingamyong said as he glanced out the window. It's been a long time since I've had a drink with the Unorthodox Alliance. The scenery flew by with each hoofbeat, dust swirling in the wind. Cut to the next morning, Seo asked Beakley Woon, "How do you like it?" He donned the new outfit and kept exclaiming, "I'm very pleased." The system also popped up. Merit increased, prestige up, attractiveness up. Beakley Woon kept turning this way and that to show his fondness for the new clothes. "Lucky me, honestly, it's the first time I've had such fine brocade sewn. It's comfortable to move in. You did well." Facing his praise, Seo smiled happily. At that moment, the system displayed new information that surprised him. "You have crafted an exquisitely finished outfit. Choose a reward." He reached out and pressed at random and received many choices. High-tier unbinding manual, high-tier talent elixir, unlock innate trait. He rubbed his chin, thinking, all heavy hitters. The unbinding manual and elixir were good too, but after a moment he selected one. The system noted the chosen reward, unlock innate trait. Henceforth you can unlock disciples' traits. The system then arranged the necessary data to display to him. First, Seo, 17 years old. Born with an extreme yin constitution, she has exceptional martial potential, but due to a period of inactivity her physical strength has declined. Traits: diligence, adversity, responsibility. Warning, her inner power is insufficient. Traits cannot be unlocked yet. After seeing the pile of information, Beakley Woon felt puzzled by some parts. He repeated each listed result: diligence, adversity, and responsibility, and said, why can't I select this one?" The system quickly replied, "Disciples need to grow and level up before they can be selected." This frustrated him. What a dirty trick. Then he stared at Seo while thinking, which made her quite flustered. Beakley Woon thought to himself, "Fine, I'll have to find a way to help Seo mature so we can unlock this trait." No sooner thought than done, he immediately urged, "Come on, let's start formal training." This made Seo very nervous. She doubted herself inwardly. "I'm really going to be taught martial arts. Can I do it well? Even though the sect master reached out to help, what if I make a mistake?" Suddenly Seo remembered their first meeting when he had reached out to her and kindly said, "It's all right now, as long as I can heal you." So Seo made up her mind. "Yes, I'll trust the sect master. Worrying can wait. What martial art will I learn?" Shortly after, she immediately took a training stance. Beakley Woon said quickly, "The hoof step is commonly called the horse stance technique." With such a plain and familiar exercise, Seo smoothed her face and sighed. "I thought I'd learn something impressive. What is this?" He explained succinctly, "This is the best basic skill to restore your depleted strength. Focus on conditioning your body now." Hearing that, Seo timidly asked, "How long must I train?" He replied leisurely that the goal was half an hour. Hearing this, she barely believed her ears. "What?" Beakley Woon didn't let her argue and decided at once. "Begin." So Seo silently trained, saying nothing more. But after a long while, she decided to break the silence. "But Sect Master, can someone with no experience like me really practice martial arts?" Beakley Woon answered immediately, "Of course, aren't you an extreme yin constitution?" An extreme yin constitution is a body that accumulates inner power. Although that power leans toward yin energy, once a danshin forms, it will instantly convert. After explaining to Seo, Beakley Woon drifted into his own thoughts. A born extreme yin constitution can push yin energy to its limit. I can't miss a child with such innate martial talent. The system even praised him. The user's slyness stat increased. Suddenly, a loud noise from outside caught Beakley Woon's attention. "What's that?" From afar, Yuryang came running in noisily. "Hey, Beakley Woon." He thrust a scroll before him and shouted, "White Sword Sect sent this to Beakley Woon. It's puzzling." White Sword Sect. Seo, standing nearby, heard this and blurted angrily, "Those wicked people." Because of that expression, the boy, Beakley Woon, suddenly recalled. Is it that group from yesterday? He pondered for a moment. "Let's see." He took the letter and opened it. White Sword Sect is organizing a grand martial contest, and the Righteous Heavens Sect will participate. At that, Yuryang provided context. The White Sword Sect is the dominant sect in this area, and its master's temperament is as notorious as the sect itself. Rumor has it he likes using contests as an excuse to dissolve weaker, smaller sects. He frowned and hesitated, but he usually targets sects of similar or slightly lower standing. Why pick on an obscure, insignificant sect too? Hearing this, the three, Beakley Woon, Seo, and Seo, all turned their bullet-like gazes to him and glared. "What, did you just badmouth us?" This made Yuryang fluster and hastily explain, "No, it's a misunderstanding." Faced with this new information, Beakley Woon remained calm. According to Yuryang, the main aim is likely to put pressure on an up-and-coming sect. Interesting. Good, truly a golden chance to promote the righteous heavens sect. But contrary to his relaxed expression, Sioa felt a bit anxious. Will this be okay? She asked. Our sect has only 2 people. I'm afraid I'll hold the sect master back. Beakley Woon asked back in surprise, what did you say? The participant is the chief disciple, meaning it's just you alone. Hearing that, Sioa replied with resolve. Very well, then I'll work even harder alone, just me. A moment later, she realized something odd. Sioa covered her face and shouted, what? Alone? Seriously? Sioa trained all day until night fell. She was exhausted and out of breath. Sioa sprawled on the floor, sighing. Her stamina had indeed declined, but she couldn't just keep doing the horse stance forever. She recalled that afternoon when Beakley Woon repeatedly taught her, saying she hadn't even swung a sword for a full watch each day, and the only thing she kept learning was a basic chopping motion any child could do. Sioa worried to herself. The Grand Martial Contest is less than 2 weeks away. What on earth is the sect master thinking? Remembering Beakley Woon's untroubled face and his comforting smile, don't worry. That gave Sioa a boost. She sat up and decided she had to go ask him directly. Acting on it, she immediately went to find Beakley Woon. Seeing his room still lit, she felt lucky he hadn't gone to sleep yet. As she approached, she noticed what he was doing. Sioa softly called, Sect Master. She realized Beakley Woon was talking to himself. Still unaware, someone stood behind him as he kept rambling to the system. This is harder than I thought, he muttered. He was sewing the garment himself but kept pricking his fingers. The system's teasing message about self-inflicted bleeding appeared for the 23rd time. Seeing that notification, Beakley Woon cursed irritably. Shut up. He continued murmuring, she must be starting to suspect the horse stance training. First, I have to finish sewing the outfit for Sioa. I hope she'll like it, Beakley Woon said expectantly. Seeing that, Sioa quickly slipped away without intending to tell Beakley Woon. At the same time, the system announced that Sioa's trait of responsibility was about to sprout, which surprised Beakley Woon. So sudden. Time passed until the day of the Grand Martial Contest hosted by the White Sword Sect. The streets were bustling with people, lively and noisy. At a stall, a young man chatted with Wang Pao. Brother, why did the sect master suddenly organize a grand contest? Couldn't he just have a friendly duel with that righteous heavens sect? Wang Pao vaguely replied. Rumor says one of our people was defeated. Wang Pao explained in detail. He wants to put other sects in their place so they know the consequences of opposing the White Sword sect. The image of So Yohuang stepping on Chen Gamyong's face flashed quickly through both their minds. The young man sneered, thinking some fools had picked a fight without knowing their limits. What rotten luck. While they were chatting, Sioa and Beakley Woon came up and interrupted. Sioa asked, sign here, right? The young man replied at once, ah yes, that's right. He thought to himself as he looked at her, does this sect recruit disciples based on looks? She's adorable. Sioa carefully filled in her name. Sioa dutifully wrote her registration while Beakley Woon stood quietly beside her. Neither provided any further information. After they finished and walked away, the young man muttered, but what's with that female disciple's outfit? Though he spoke quietly, Beakley Woon and Sioa heard it, making his face fall while she covered her mouth to stifle a smile. To break the awkwardness, he asked, do you like the outfit? Sioa answered honestly, the stitching's a bit clumsy, but I really like it. When they saw everyone had gathered together, So Yohuang stepped onto the high platform and loudly announced, from now on I declare the White Sword Martial Contest open. This gathering is not only to strengthen bonds among the righteous sects, but also a stage for the future sprouts of the martial world. Therefore, I have prepared a small gift. Having said that, So Yohuang ordered the attendant beside him to open the treasure box. When everyone saw the item inside, they were astonished. Is that the little azure pill? The system quickly updated Beakley Woon. The little azure is one of 2 spirit pills refined by the Orthodox pill sect. Ingesting it strengthens the blood and chi and helps form the danshan. So Yohuang waved his hand and shouted, the victor will be awarded this little azure pill. His proclamation excited everyone at once. The White Sword sect leader is indeed generous. When So Yohuang descended the platform, 2 disciples below bowed and reported that the drawing lots had been prepared, my lord. Suddenly So Yohuang cursed, you idiots. He sneered as he arranged things. I will make sure they never dare oppose the White Sword sect again. He laughed madly at his wicked plan. Show them the gap, absolute power. The disciples immediately obeyed. Yes, master. After a while, everyone gathered around the arena to prepare for regional qualifying round 3 of the contest. Right now, Sioa was extremely anxious. She trembled and asked, Sect Master, will I do well? Beakley Woon confidently replied, remember your training process. She hesitated and reminded him, "But I only practiced the horse stance." He quickly reassured her to calm Sioa's nerves. "Then trust the one who trained you. I assure you you've become much stronger than before." Hearing that half-hearted answer, Sioa still felt uneasy and repeated, "Really?" Then she steeled herself, "Even if I don't fully believe it, I'll do my best." Beakley Woon nodded in agreement. So Sioa gripped the sword tightly and steadily stepped onto the arena. Beakley Woon remained very confident in her ability. He could sense a vast, powerful strength hidden within Sioa's small body. The referee's voice rang out. "From now on, regional qualifying round 3 will begin." Chong Sam stepped forward to introduce herself first. "I am Chong Sam, the third senior disciple of the Blue Moon Sect." Sioa promptly replied, "I am Sioa of the Righteous Heaven Sect." After hearing her introduction, Chong Sam sneered with contempt. "What is this? Don't tell me you have contest experience. You look like you just picked up a sword not long ago," he scrutinized as they faced each other. Sioa didn't refute and admitted immediately, "Yes, that's right, I only learned for about a month." Hearing that, Chong Sam grew arrogant. You don't know your place daring to stand here. Let me teach you a lesson." At that moment, the referee waved the flag and shouted, "Begin." The referee's command barely ended when Sioa swiftly launched her attack while Chong Sam was still ranting. She resolved to strike with all her might. Sioa swung the sword hard into his abdomen, catching Chong Sam off guard so he couldn't block the blow. He yelled in pain, and that single strike sent Chong Sam's body flying back. The scene left everyone present momentarily stunned. Chong Sam lay motionless where he fell after Sioa's sudden attack. The incident happened so quickly that even the referee froze. He stammered, "Impossible." The youths around the ring couldn't believe their eyes and kept denying it. Absurd victory decided by a single strike. Beakley Woon quickly and confidently reaffirmed, "I told you to trust me." Not wasting any time, the referee quickly waved the flag to confirm the victor was Sioa of the Righteous Heaven Sect. This made Sioa very happy with the outcome. Looking down at the stands, Beakley Woon had given her a thumbs up. He thought to himself that over the past 2 weeks he had taught Sioa the mindset of a martial artist. From then on, Sioa's subsequent matches were all very easy. Beakley Woon thought to himself that attacking with full force wasn't as simple as people assumed, especially for novices of that age. Most couldn't use their full strength for fear of injuring their opponent. In other words, Sioa was different from them. She would strike with all her power. All of Sioa's matches ended very quickly with just 1 or 2 surprise attacks. Sioa cheerfully reported, "Sect Master, I won." Beakley Woon stood below and murmured she should breeze through the main rounds. He thought happily that he no longer needed to worry about Sioa and wondered if anyone else was noteworthy. He turned his attention to the other matches when a referee shouted loudly, followed by the announcement of the White Sword Sect's entrant. Hearing that, the White Sword Sect quickly focused on a nearby arena. White Sword Sect, Right now on the arena, Jingguang was relentlessly attacking his opponent, causing the other guy to be unable to keep up with the pace and quietly plead, "Wait a moment." But Jingguang didn't stop, so the opponent had no choice but to surrender. "I give up." Even so, perhaps because Jingguang was over-focused, he kept attacking. A strange aura rose around him as he assumed a finishing stance, making Jingguang's opponent scream in fear. "Wait a moment." Yet he still swung his sword down forcefully, striking his opponent square in the face. The referee saw this and hurriedly intervened. "Stop, the outcome is already decided." But it was too late to save him. It was too late to rescue the man. Jingguang's opponent had several teeth knocked out and fell unconscious. The referee announced, "Jingguang of the White Sword Sect wins." He heard the result and frowned in irritation, clicking his tongue. Beakley Woon watched from afar and silently evaluated. The kid clearly had the advantage, yet still used cheap tricks. What a nasty fellow. Not long after, Sioa ran over from a distance, happily reporting, "Sect Master, I made the main rounds." Beakley Woon immediately replied, "Oh, congratulations." Sioa was excited like a child boasting about a high score. "I gave it my all like you said and won easily. You're still very confident in your teaching." "Yes, it worked." Suddenly while chatting, Sioa felt uneasy looking at Jingguang. What is that unpleasant killing intent? It seems to be coming from him. Feeling puzzled and seeing Beakley Woon watching Jingguang's match, Sioa asked immediately, "How is that person? Give your prediction." "Chances are I'll face him in the main rounds." While the two were talking, someone interrupted. "Congratulations on entering the main rounds." They both turned and saw the White Sword Sect Master So Yohuang standing behind them. Beakley Woon greeted, "White Sword Sect." So Yohuang chatted amiably, "Last time your people were rather rude." Beakley Woon confidently replied, "Ah, I'm fine, but perhaps disciple training is needed." So Yo-Wang ignored that remark and patted Sioa's shoulder. For a girl to make the main rounds is truly impressive. "But your next opponent is Wu Jiam. What a pity, this is probably the end for you. Still, your talent is special. You could come to the White Sword Sect anytime." Seeing so Yo-Wang tried to lure Sioa, Beakley Woon quickly brushed the man's hand off her. He stood in front of her to protect her and replied to So Yo-Wang, "Thanks for the compliment about Sioa. Your White Sword Sect's disciples do show some skill." So Yo-Wang repeated, annoyed with a hint of. Having said that, he suddenly turned and called for Wang Pal, who quickly ran over from somewhere and replied, "Yes, Sect Master." So Yo-Wang instructed, "Escort these two to the resting chambers." Wang Pal immediately obeyed. "Yes." So Yo-Wang gave a wicked smile as he turned and left, hoping they would enjoy the rest of the schedule. After he had gone a good distance, Wang Pal then politely offered, "If I may, sir. I am Wang Pal, a first-rank disciple of the White Sword Sect. I will be your guide." The system displayed information to Beakley Woon, Wang Pal, 21 years old, exceptionally gifted. Thanks to his outstanding talent, he grasped and learned techniques very quickly, and he carefully received Beakley Woon and Sioa, inviting them to follow this way. In the blink of an eye, Beakley Woon appeared right behind Wang Pal. He rubbed Wang Pal's shoulder and praised him. "Hey, I just remembered. Tall frame, extraordinary foundation." Wang Pal was slightly surprised and startled by the sudden action and stammered, "Thank you." Wang Pal felt bashful at the compliments, his body stiffening awkwardly. "This is the guest chamber you two will use. Please rest comfortably." Beakley Woon politely replied, "All right, thank you." After Wang Pal left, Sioa hurriedly said, "Sect Master, about my next opponent." Before she could finish, Beakley Woon cut in. "What do you think of Sioa? If that kid Wang Pal becomes her junior brother?" Sioa was rather shocked by his abrupt question. "What?" Scene change, so Yo-Wang inquired, "What's your name?" Wang Pal respectfully answered, "Sect Master, my name is Wang Pal." He patted him on the shoulder and praised, "Compared to your peers, your physique is large, your muscles firm, you have talent, become a disciple of the White Sword Sect." Wang Pal was quite surprised and said, "Yes, thank you, Sect Master." After some time, Wang Pal was knocked down by Jingguang while training with him. Those nearby cheered. Jingguang beat Wang Pal, beat an elder brother 3 years his senior. Impressive. Wang Pal quietly reproached, "Wait, junior brother, it was only training. There's no need to go that far." Above, so Yo-Wang turned away in disappointment. "I misjudged him. Unexpectedly, he's just a paper tiger." Wang Pal shouted up, "Sect Master. You told him once, spend your life serving your junior brothers." Hearing that, Wang Pal froze. He lay on the bed and suddenly woke from his dream. He rubbed his eyes and muttered to himself, "Was that a dream?" Jingguang entered and asked, "Bro, you're awake?" "Elder brother," Wang Pal wondered. "Jingguang, junior brother, why are you here?" He replied, "I was going to warm up a bit before the upcoming contest." Wang Pal pleaded, "Sorry, but I don't feel well." But Jingguang didn't care. "What's so important about that? What's important is what I need now. A useless big body at least should be useful at times like this." When he left, Wang Pal sat in gloom, blaming himself. Time passed and the day of the semifinals arrived. Sioa discussed her opponent's sword technique. Wu Jiam's illusion sword is unfathomably deceptive, hard to tell where he'll strike. However, precisely because of that, if one's finesse isn't sufficient, huge flaws will be exposed. Beakley Woon asked, "So to beat someone using illusion swords, what must you do?" She answered, "Try not to be deceived." He replied, "Right, but at your level there's an easier way." He explained his method and concluded, "Follow this approach." She remained somewhat flustered. "What?" Beakley Woon affirmed, "Do that and you'll certainly beat Wu Jiam, trust me." Sioa gripped her saber tightly and happily agreed. Yuryang, standing beside him, said, "So it's already the semifinals." Beakley Woon replied, "You made it." He praised him. "In just 1 month to bring that girl this far. Congratulations." He looked quite pleased with himself. "Save the congratulations for tomorrow. I'll accept them after I win the final." He asked again, "What, are you serious?" On the arena, Wu Jiam sneered, "I admit you made it this far, but luck only goes so far. Everyone here is betting on your defeat." Sioa confidently answered, "You're wrong. At least my sect master said I'd win." He laughed loudly, "Like master, like student, both are crazy." When the referee loudly called the start, she charged forward shouting, I'll be the victor of today's duel. Wu Jian was no slouch and immediately parried Sioa's attack. He still acted arrogant, I'll give him that spirit. He thought to himself that disciples of the White Sword Sect were fundamentally in a different league. This attack from Wu Jian surprised Sioa considerably. Seeing her flung away, he looked down on her. Already had your tail tucked between your legs. Sioa thought to herself that if she couldn't tell which attacks were illusions and which were real, her bright eyes filled with panic. Wu Jian told himself to maintain the center line. He kept the offensive posture and struck Sioa once more, sending her flying and making her let out a grunt. He smirked, oh, she blocked that one too. Seems I underestimated you. So how about this move? As he spoke, he swung something in his hand, scattering it all over the arena. When that strange purple liquid was about to touch Sioa's body, she recalled Beakley Woon's instructions. Illusion swords are usually weak in close combat, so he would keep his distance from her. Just have your blade touch the opponent and you can win. Sioa grabbed her sword and charged. Now it's just getting started. She nimbly ran close to Wu Jian. Seeing that, he quickly directed those streams of purple liquid toward her. Sioa swiftly dodged the advancing streams of liquid. Wu Jian was pleased with himself. Sorry, your movements are too predictable. So she took one of his attacks head-on. Yuryang and he watched this with solemn faces. He turned and saw Beakley Woon's eyes narrow slightly, his face unreadable. When Sioa collapsed, he smugly said, I won. On the ground, Sioa was regulating her breathing. Wu Jian showed disdain and a bit of expectation, but in the end, that's as far as it goes. She shouted with all her might, not yet. The match isn't over. Sioa stood up as if nothing had happened. Wu Jian demanded, you're having trouble standing. What are you planning to do? Sioa felt reinvigorated. She ran like the wind toward him. Wu Jian acted as if fearless and wore a ridiculous look of contempt. Sioa shouted that she would finish it with this move. No sooner had she finished speaking than he was sent flying. Yuryang joyfully shouted, we won. Someone from the White Sword Sect yelled, she broke the rules, pretended to be defeated, and then attacked. Isn't that cheating? Beakley Woon calmly uttered a few words. Are you being petty? Is the White Sword Sect that rude? A mere disciple daring to challenge the leader of another sect. So Yoweng said, Sect Master of the Righteous Heavens Sect, please forgive my disciple's rudeness. You need not make an issue of it. I accept the apology. So Yoweng continued, insisting that the root of the problem was the assumption she had lost. The White Sword Sect acknowledges defeat in this duel. Sioa of the Righteous Heavens Sect wins. The disciple of the White Sword Sect loses. Sioa joyfully cried out to her sect master, I won. He replied, well done, tonight Yuryang will treat you. Seeing all this, Wang Pao turned his back and left silently. As he passed by his master, he was instructed by Hong to slip poison into that girl's food, so she would be paralyzed for tomorrow's match. Regarding that brat, winning alone won't do. Tell Jingguang to beat her until her arms and legs are broken, turn her into a cripple. When Wang Pao hesitated to refuse, he was slapped into a twisted face. He cursed, you idiot, if you lack talent you should at least be a bit clever. That's why your junior brother surpassed you. You suddenly appeared and sneered. White Sword Sect really trains their disciples strictly. Hearing that, he stopped and silently observed you. So Yoweng shouted, Sect Master of the Righteous Heavens Sect, you interrogate and interfere in another sect's affairs. You are truly rude. Beakley Woon replied, I don't know what happened, but treating this young man that way is a bit much. So Yoweng answered matter-of-factly, even if a disciple is weak, isn't the sect master's role to guide without abandoning them? Matters that don't concern you, please leave. You suggested you came here on business with the White Sword Sect. Wang Pao begged them to hand him over to the Righteous Heavens Sect. Surprised, he asked back, what? Wang Pao was just as confused, why me? You explained that compared to the White Sword Sect, the methods of the Righteous Heavens Sect seemed to suit this young man better. So Yoweng angrily asked, so you've already grown close to the Righteous Heavens Sect? Wang Pao explained, no, Sect Master. He agreed, I accept that offer. However, letting one of my beloved disciples go is a pity. How about we make a small wager? You asked, a wager. So Yoweng revealed his intention. That girl Sioa is a rare talent. It would be a waste for her to stay in a minor sect. If she goes elsewhere, she'll feel used when tricked. He agreed that in this tournament, the sect that wins will receive a disciple from the losing sect. I'm saying this for your own good, don't worry about it. Beakley Woon immediately agreed. Wang Pao shouted, you must be joking, Righteous Heavens Sect, please stop. So Yoweng turned his back and left, then I will look forward to your only disciple soon disappearing. He turned and asked, why do you think I chose you? I won't tell you where I'm taking you, think it over carefully. Scene change, YL letter 1B0 letter 1E3 NG looked quite surprised. Sioa knew about this wager too. Beakley Woon explained, having another junior brother will surely make Sioa happy. It's a waste to keep such a talent idle in a place like the White Sword Sect. All we need is to win, right? He patted her shoulder and advised, Siowa, I don't want to put pressure on you, but can you win this duel? She hesitated a little. Of course I'll try my best, but the sect master said the odds are 50-50. Beakley Woon replied, that's true, but I believe you can do it. I believe in you. And seeing his gaze, she felt somewhat more confident. I'll do my best. Elsewhere, So Yo-wang was instructing his disciples not to be careless, not to lose face again and to win at all costs. They loudly replied, yes, sect master. Wang Pal also advised Jingguang, his junior brother, to be careful. He answered, I won't be as careless as Wu Jiam. Big brother, you seem to overvalue the opponent's luck, huh? That silly hope I'll smash it to bits. The referee called loudly for the two to duel. Jingguang still couldn't forget to belittle his opponent. You've made it to the finals against the White Sword Sect, I admit that, but that luck ends here. Siowa was no less and retorted, who knows who'll be dead meat in whose hands yet. When the referee shouted start, Jingguang thought to himself that she'd avoid direct confrontation with the newcomer's inner strength and resort to sneak attacks. Contrary to his expectations, she charged forward to face him head-on. And Siowa, in an attacking stance, landed a blow on Jingguang to his astonishment. Jingguang thought privately that this brat's inner power was stronger than he'd assumed. Siowa was also recalling his advice. The opponent would assume her inner power was low. Because that seemed obvious, but isn't she a supreme yin constitution, a natural physique that has accumulated inner power? There was only one chance. Siowa leaped high, aiming for a critical strike, but Jingguang was no pushover and managed to dodge. When he closed to her, he quickly punched Siowa. The punch sent her flying several meters. He said, I admit your inner power is exceptional. Even so, you're still just a novice. And without giving her a chance to reply, Jingguang launched a continuous assault. Siowa blocked while thinking, this guy is strong. He confidently declared he'd finish her in 10 seconds. She panicked, thinking she couldn't lose like this. At that moment, the system chimed. The responsibility temperament activated. Confirming balance and adversity, 3 temperaments fused with responsibility at the center. The inherited trait, clear reflection, only water, was unlocked. In the extreme situation, insight and judgment were greatly enhanced. Siowa shouted ready to strike, but Jingguang's attack smashed through her move. Before that counterattack, she could only scream, impossible. The staff in Siowa's hand had been snatched away by him. Jingguang shouted, I commend you for holding out this long, but can you withstand this strike? Under the astonishing force of his attack, Siowa could only widen her eyes. Jingguang sprinted toward her with the staff. Beakley Woon below anxiously warned, Siowa. Just before that blow would land, she suddenly remembered the faith he had placed in her. So Siowa unleashed her power, sending dust billowing everywhere, and Jingguang was hurled several meters back as a result. Beakley Woon and Yeryang, witnessing the scene, couldn't help but furrow their brows. So Yo-wang, seeing this, cried out in astonishment, it's yin cold chi cultivation. At that moment, her hands were wrapped in streams of cold chi. Whenever Siowa swung her arm, the cold chi immediately spread around. She exclaimed in surprise, it's a bit chilly, huh? At this point, Beakley Woon couldn't restrain himself and climbed onto the stand. You shouted, and the referee immediately stopped him. This is a duel, no one is allowed up. Beakley Woon yelled, what is this? The outcome is clear, can't you see? The referee, seeing Jingguang writhing in pain on the ground, hesitated slightly, then loudly announced Siowa wins. The two immediately looked at each other and grinned with delight. So Yo-wang snapped angrily, you really do underestimate my White Sword Sect. Beakley Woon caught Siowa and gently asked, can you stand up? She still seemed rather cheerful. I kept my promise. You smiled softly and said, this kid. Those around began to praise, great fight, well done, congratulations. You raised Siowa's hand and the referee also shouted, the victor of this white sword duel is Siowa of the Righteous Heaven Sect. She beamed with joy amid the crowd's cheers. Beakley Woon announced, on this occasion, I, as Sect Master of the Righteous Heaven Sect, have a few words to say. In 1 month, the Righteous Heaven Sect will officially hold its founding ceremony. We respectfully invite the heroes present here to attend and celebrate. People muttered in surprise, they haven't held the founding ceremony yet, so the White Sword Sect lost to a fledgling sect. So Yo-wang angrily shouted, Sect Master of the Righteous Heaven Sect, you bastard, you dare to use the White Sword Sect's name to amplify your own founding ceremony's prestige. And you even concealed the yin cold chi cultivation. How dare you play tricks before me? Seeing his sect master about to attack Beakley Woon, Wang Pal hurriedly intervened. He angrily asked Wang Pal, what are you doing? He warned, Sect Master, you should keep your dignity. Hearing that, he grew even angrier and launched a move. You dare rush to defend the righteous heaven's sect. Traitors must be executed on the spot. You stepped in front of Wang Pal and challenged him. Sect master of the White Sword Sect, what are you doing? Wang Pal is now a disciple of the righteous heaven's sect, so please don't casually lay a hand on my people. If you don't accept the result of the duel, I can personally take the challenge. No sooner had he finished than he grabbed and twisted the elder's wrist, causing So Yo Wang to cry out in pain. He tried to pull his hand free and said, "Damn you, do whatever you want. Get out of my sight, all of you, scram. Righteous Heaven Sect, this grudge I will never forget." You wondered, are you still holding regrets? He replied, "No, sir, but can someone as useless as me start over?" Beekly Woon praised without restraint, "You were already an outstanding martial artist. I will prove that." Wang Pal recalled the words he'd heard, "So Yo Wang really is a fool." Jingguang said, "Looks like Big Brother is only that good. An empty barrel makes the most noise." And he couldn't hold it back, so the tears streamed down his face one after another. Wang Pal showed clear determination. "Thank you, sir, I will not disappoint you." Beekly Woon stood on the stage and announced, "The duel ends here." Yuryang sneered, "The winner is Miss Siowa, yet he takes all the credit for himself." 2 weeks have passed since the duel took place, and Wang Pal has been diligently training in the territory of the Righteous Heaven Sect. He asked, "Senior sister, besides horse step training, don't we practice anything else?" Hearing that, Siowa was so pleased she slapped his shoulder a few times. "You call me senior sister? Yes, I'm your senior sister." The sect master taught that one must always value the fundamentals. "Junior brother Wang Pal, keep training diligently, don't rush, and you'll be like me." He explained, "Besides, I'm confident in my strength and stamina." She said, "Then now you can go carry water by yourself." Wang Pal thought to himself that it seemed there would be a lot of chores ahead. Beekly Woon thought inwardly that his eye for people really wasn't bad at all. Wang Pal's talent lay in his ability to analyze techniques, his steady mindset, and the physical strength to support them. From Siowa to Wang Pal, "My judgment of people is truly accurate." A moment later, Yuryang asked, "How are preparations for the founding ceremony going?" You replied, "Thanks to you, things are going much more smoothly." He replied, "As an investor, it's my duty to do so." And perhaps because of the publicity from the duel, invitations to the founding ceremony have been pouring in. But among them was a summons letter from the Murim Alliance, which made you surprised enough to ask, "From the Murim Alliance?" Beekly Woon stared solemnly at the roll of paper in his hand. Seeing you remain silent, he gently called, "Beekly Woon." You burned the scroll and said, "The content requests that we accept an investigation into the alleged copying of Beekly Clan's basic technique." Yuryang wondered, "I've left the Beekly Clan for 15 years, why only now?" You said the old man is acting unlike himself. No, it's more accurate to say the Beekly Clan's style is to seize an opportunity to exploit an opponent's gap. Damn it. I thought everything was going smoothly. You thought to yourself, of course the martial arts of the Righteous Heaven Sect are the result of my 15 years of enlightenment, with not a trace of Beekly Clan techniques. However, if the Murim Alliance's investigators deliberately side with the Beekly Clan, it will be hard to avoid the charge of plagiarism. If we lose this investigation, not only will we be denied the transmission of our techniques, but we'll also have to pay a large compensation. This is the real problem. Even if we get another chance for investigation later, the standards will be harsher than at the start. Yuryang turned and walked out. I'm heading back. Beekly Woon was still lost in thought. Surely they'll target the founding ceremony, so we must check the differences in basic techniques of other sects to leave them no grounds to nitpick. The more basic techniques from famous clans we have, the better. The problem now is where to find those basic techniques. Siowa rushed in and called out, "Sect master, guests have arrived." On hearing that, he turned to look. Outside, Namgung Wu whispered, "Is this estate really owned by that stingy old man?" Chung Ha warned, "Don't touch anything or I'll send you out for a banana." Beekly Woon asked, "Who are you people?" Namgung Wu stepped forward to greet them. "Long time no see, merchant group leader. Now we should call you Righteous Heaven Sect, right?" Hearing that, he burst out laughing. Beekly Woon said, "This might even turn the whole board of the game upside down." Cut to Yuryang's capital, he said, "Beekly Clan. If the request comes from the Beekly Clan with their deep connections, can the Murim Alliance really side against them? At this rate, should we retreat?" Gaeyam suddenly spoke up. "No need to hesitate, this crisis is on a different level than the White Sword Sect's nonsense." He muttered, "Different level, huh? Gaeyam, I'll write a letter, please send it for me." He asked, "Send it where?" Yuryang replied, "If you're afraid of the Murim Alliance and the Beekly Clan, just improvise and disrupt their big move. Try dragging the Unorthodox Alliance into it and see what happens." Cut to Beekly Gang complaining, "Outer Hall Master, you're meddling again. Investigating whether a sect copied another's basic technique before they've even held a founding ceremony. I told you there's no need to touch that. Beakley Changseong replied, the head said so, but that was the head's unilateral decision. The eldest child Seani lacks both martial insight and talent and is weak. Seani, though exceptionally talented, is hot-tempered, and on top of that, she's a daughter. The elder replied, being a daughter is not an obstacle to inheriting the clan. The Beakley clan has no such rule. Beakley Changseong questioned, why did you let that brat leave the clan? Didn't you care for him deeply? He was a child of talent and intelligence, with such a good character that no one could fault him. He must be made to know his place. That his true corner remains the Beakley clan. This is the Elder Council's intention. Beakley Gang replied, fine, I fulfilled my duties as a father. To grow, he must face adversity. He must also learn to protect the sect from the fangs of others. Go, let him know that wherever he goes, he's still under the Beakley clan's sky. Beakley Changseong answered, I will definitely bring Woon back to the clan. Time passed, and the day of the Righteous Heaven Sect's founding ceremony arrived. Lee Su reassured, don't worry, no sect has ever escaped a basic technique plagiarism investigation. Beakley Changseong replied, I'm not worried at all, I will bring Woon back. Lee Su wondered, why are you so obsessed with Beakley Woon? No matter his talent, he's still only one member of the bloodline. He explained that Woon was not simply another clan member. He thought to himself that if Beakley Woon hadn't left the clan and had continued to train in the Beakley arts, he might have become the era's greatest sword master. Beakley Changseong replied that although he had left the clan still needed him. He thought again, let's see how you'll respond to the clan's summons, Beakley Woon. Inside, the drums kept sounding continuously. Beakley Woon stood above, waiting for the auspicious hour. System alert, user's heart rate is rising. Please breathe deeply, you're yelling too loudly. Then he jumped straight down below. Beakley Woon thrust the flag into the ground and proclaimed the founding of heaven. The planted flag sent sand and dust flying everywhere. Everyone was quite startled by the spectacle. His dragon-shaped banner fluttered proudly in the wind. Beakley Woon began to speak, praising those who had come from afar. I am Beakley Woon of the Righteous Heaven Sect. First, I have many things to say to you who came here, but there is one issue that must be resolved before the founding, to clarify matters for those who are still unclear. Our sect, the Righteous Heaven Sect, has copied the martial arts of the Beakley clan. Everyone was rather bewildered by his declaration. Everyone wondered, are you really admitting to copying martial arts? Beakley Changseong, on the other hand, grew quite excited. This seemed more interesting than he'd thought. Lee Su spoke up, Beakley hero, it seems the Righteous Heaven Sect has given up, he replied, but I see it differently. Beakley Changseong thought to himself, what are you plotting? Woon, he called. I hear the Murim Alliance's investigation delegation is here. Could you step forward? Beakley Changseong spoke, long time no see, and when the Righteous Heaven Sect saw him, everyone stirred. He continued, may I hear what scheme you're up to? You replied, it's nothing major. Right here, publicly before 10,000 people, I request an investigation to verify the copying. Beakley Changseong shouted, an on-the-spot verification of copying here. By principle, an investigation must undergo a strict verification process and must not be publicized before a verdict. Lee Su reminded him, Beakley hero, this place is organized by the Murim Alliance to mediate disputes between sects, not for the Beakley clan to prosecute the Righteous Heaven Sect's crimes. He thought to himself, fine, in front of the small and medium sects that form the Murim Alliance's foundation, we can't let them think the alliance rules in a biased way just because of him. Beakley Woon asked, has it begun? Lee Su replied, go ahead. As he executed a move and explained, this is blue technique, one of our sect's 2 basic techniques. He had only delivered 1 kick when 3 attack lines appeared, and everyone focused intently on his moves. Lee Su shouted he copied the Beakley family's martial art. Beakley Woon affirmed, yes, I took inspiration from the triad of heaven, earth, and man. Beakley Changseong said, I do see it. He continued. And at the same time, this move also copies the martial art of the Namgung clans. And after direct verification, it was confirmed that a total of 23 basic techniques of the Righteousness Sect all copied martial arts from many sects. Lee Su shouted, what? Wait, isn't that just a pretense? Beakley Woon retorted, which part do you think is a pretense? He said, there are no representatives from the other sects here to authenticate the copying, so who will judge? Namgung Woo immediately raised his hand. Ah, right here. Everyone murmured, wasn't that Namgung Woo's little brat? Chung Ha also raised a hand. Here, the Wudang sect has people present too. Lee Su was bewildered. Weren't these people supposed to be from the merchant group? Namgung Woo explained, I've had duties nearby recently, and I dropped by when I heard the former leader was founding a sect. Anyway, the similarities in the parts just shown are undeniable. The basic technique of our Namgung is the Vo En Hai arts. It indeed begins from earth forming man and ends with reaching toward heaven, containing the mysteries of heaven, earth, and man. Chung Ha produced a box and said, "The Wudang sect shares the same view, please take a look at this." Besides the Namgung family and the Wudang sect, here are letters confirming suspicions of copying from other sects. If so, then the basic techniques of the Beakley clan that the righteous heaven sect copied would also be entangled in copying claims with other sects. Beakley Changseong objected, "Isn't that just a pretense?" Namgung Wu replied, "But isn't that exactly what the Beakley clan claims? Similarities in heaven, earth, and man mean copying? Surely not. Would the Muram Alliance's investigation team really resort to such sophistry?" Beakley Changseong roared, "What did you say, you bastard?" Beakley Woon watched the scene with clear satisfaction, while the elder angrily shouted his name. Li Su wondered, "How could you check all of that? Did you write down the basic techniques and send them everywhere?" "Yes." Beakley Woon didn't answer but countered, "I've said what I wanted, now it's Moon Sword's turn to respond." He thought to himself that if he admitted the Beakley clan's techniques were copied, they'd be tied to copying claims with 23 sects. Would the elder truly risk that? Beakley Changseong wondered. Is that all? Suddenly, the elder drew his sword from behind his back, and without a word lunged at Beakley Woon. Namgung Wu and Chung Ha cried out in alarm. The righteous heaven sects leader saw the two of them advancing and shouted, "Stop here. This is my personal matter." Beakley Changseong reminded him, "No matter what anyone says, you are still Beakley blood, you are the heir who will guide the Beakley clan's future. I ask, have you not let go of your ties?" He shouted, "You are the one still clinging to old ties. Do you still bear hatred toward the clan? Because you didn't avenge your mother, because you couldn't protect her. If you think the clan is pathetic, I understand. But if you intend to destroy the Beakley clan for that, then I will." See him slowly descend into madness. He unleashed a move that sent Beakley Changseong tumbling away. The elder slammed his sword into the ground to keep himself from being thrown too far. Beakley Woon said slowly, "I do not wish to deny my bloodline. If I claim I hold no hatred, that would be a lie, but now I am a bit more generous." He asked, "Then why don't you return?" He explained, "As sect master I must become stronger. I am not the same as when I left the Beakley clan." Beakley Changseong challenged again, "How long do you think you can hold out? If my family wants to suppress you, what can a small sect like this do?" He abruptly cut him off, ready to face whatever comes right now. Beakley Changseong opened his eyes in surprise. His thoughts drifted back many years. Back then, Beakley Woon was just a little kid. At that time, he had confidently said, "Uncle, I already blocked one of your moves." Those memories jolted Beakley Changseong awake. He approached him as the leader of the Righteous Heaven sect. "Uncle, the fundamentals and martial arts of our sect did not plagiarize any school. And as a descendant of the Beakley clan, please wait a little longer for me. One day everything will be clear." Beakley Changseong remained lost in tangled thoughts. He said nothing, rose to his feet, and turned his back to leave. Then he declared plainly, "I hereby announce in the name of Moon Sword, the Righteous Heaven sect has not plagiarized the Beakley clan's martial arts." Having said that, he strode off without looking back. The Unorthodox Alliance leader muttered, "I was going to help a bit if things got difficult, but it seems unnecessary." He thought to himself that this manner is like a legendary weapon, unbelievable. "Ga Wall, please hush, you're too noisy, Papa." He thought privately that this manner really is like a divine weapon, truly incredible. He exclaimed, "Seems we've found an interesting fellow here. I'm off then." Ga Wall seemed rather indifferent. She stared ahead and wondered, "That person will be my first trading partner." A few days have passed since the scene change, but his manner still felt rather empty. Zioa exclaimed, "Unbelievable. No one has enrolled, 3 days have passed, and not a single person has come." Beakley Woon reassured her, "Stay calm, how could we wear our hearts on our sleeves over this?" She wondered, how on earth will we get more disciples, or should Wang Pal go out and recruit? Wang Pal, hearing his name, panicked. "Me recruit," he instructed, "then take this to Haoun Merchant and come back." Zioa asked, "What is this?" He answered, "A method for recruiting disciples." Zioa opened it to find inside an application for cooperation with the Muram Alliance. Cut to the villa of the 3 strategists of the Muram Alliance. He announced that the disciples of Mujiang Martial School have submitted a petition refusing the internship. Yeagle Pyong asked why. He explained that graduation is upcoming, but they say the internship process is unfair. the criteria for dividing duties have been biased from the start. Under the Murim Alliance are Mujiang Martial School, Maryun Martial School, smaller sects without strict lines, and great schools originating from distinguished families and clans. Yeagle Pyong opined that on the surface Mujiang Martial School seems likely to lose, but there are still disciples of orthodox masters, and in fact they're holding their own. He explained, but this time it's different. The skill level of this generation of main hall disciples is exceptional. Mujiang students have lost for 3 years straight, and morale is severely down. Yeagle Pyong asked again, so they refused the internship. What about Mujiang Martial School's master? He replied, we're still trying to persuade them, but it seems the master tacitly supports this action. He nodded. No wonder when you're being dominated like that, anyone would want to regain face. Suddenly, a carrier pigeon landed on the windowsill with a letter. Yeagle Pyong read the letter intently. Deputy Strategist Yeagle Pyong, concentrate all the disciples of the Martial Training Hall. The internship will proceed as planned. Cut tonight in the woods near Hulong County. Xian Wugang suddenly snapped awake from a strange dream. He sat on the bed, panting as if he couldn't regain his composure. Xian Wugang thought to himself, when will you stop slandering me, huh? With a hint of comic irritation. Seeing him leave, Xian Munchiak reminded him that it wasn't his turn to be on watch yet. Xian Wugang complained that he couldn't sleep. Is something wrong? Sorry, this internship refusal is my fault. I urged everyone to refuse the internship. Perhaps they'll see it as arrogance, so we were assigned to train at an obscure sect. Xian Munchiak suggested causing a ruckus with the sect master if they're dissatisfied. Xian Wugang shouted, it's shift change now, go take a rest. Xian Munchiak and Xian Wugang then shouted in unison. Someone, dramatic timing included. Beekli Woon introduced himself. Hello, I am the sect master of the Righteous Heavens sect, Beekli Woon. Now I will begin the entrance examination into the sect. The rules are very simple. All any of you need to do is touch the threshold of the Righteous Heavens sect. Xian Wugang shouted, all disciples of Mujiang Martial School prepare to fight. Immediately a crowd surged and attacked him. Beekli Woon gently pushed once. Xian Wugang couldn't stand it and kept coughing. Xian Munchiak called out anxiously, Xian Wugang. He said softly, of course, only when you safely get away from me. Scene change, Ganhubei province near Mount Wudang. A voice rang out. Have you heard any news from the martial world? Namgung Wu was explaining, this time the martial hall's dual location. I heard a new sect appeared, never heard of them before. What was their name again? The man in front calmly said, I don't care, whoever they are, it's meaningless. He speculated everything. Maybe the Murim Alliance is trying to create some balance. Could it be? Like some anonymous master. Just then Beekli-san spoke up, same difference, whoever they are, I'll win anyway. The girl remembered the past when Beekli Woon left coldly. Forgive me, Beekli-san was shocked. Brother, where are you going? Hearing that, he slightly turned his head to look. In the end, Beekli Woon still left coldly, ignoring Beekli-san's calls. The girl sat dazed there, left all alone. Mujiang Martial School, Beekli-san, Beekli Woon's little sister, said determinedly, until I know why brother abandoned the clan and left, I have no intention of forgiving him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Beekli Woon blocked an attack from someone. He looked at Xian Munchiak stepping back and judged he was pretty good. The other guy worriedly turned back to ask Xian Wugang, are you okay? Beekli Woon casually asked, what's your name? Xian Munchiak spoke with extreme caution. Xian Munchiak, suddenly, are you the Righteous Heavens sect leader? Why did you attack us? He calmly said, you could call it my educational method. Before teaching, I need to assess your levels. He heard that and frowned. You said only a single person needs to reach Righteous Heavens sect to pass the entrance exam. So what happens if one fails here? Beekli Woon quickly leapt up and said, if those who can't even pass such a simple entrance exam are allowed to enter the duel, there's no point. Until all the duels finish, I plan to dazzle every one of you and stash you in the warehouse. Defeated without even a chance to fight, I'll give you the worst humiliation a martial artist can endure. Xian Munchiak saw things were bad and hurried to stop him. At that moment, Xian Wugang leapt up and fully blocked his attack. He stood there panting heavily, making Xian Munchiak extremely worried. Xian Wugang. Now Xian Wugang, without any fear, spoke up. If we defeat you here, will you count that as passing the entrance exam? Beekli Woon generously agreed and told them to go ahead. He still stood motionless as everyone rushed at him. Wise decision. Then Beekli Woon boldly unleashed a move that made the crowd cry out in pain. Then he remarked in judgment, only when the opponent isn't me. He widened his eyes when he saw this scene. Time passed and Beekli Woon watched them fall and let out a small laugh. You bluntly criticize, where did that earlier bravado go? Are you panicking over a little disturbance, not daring to charge forward? Beekli Woon lightly dodged Xian Wugang's move and praised, well done. A second later he lifted his leg. Xian Wugang, right? Compared to the bravado, he feels a bit sluggish. Not stopping there, someone else lunged at Beakly Woon in a surprise attack. He immediately swung his sword as a voice rang out, Dan Ryeon. He was startled to see part of his hair had been cut off. Beakly Woon calmly stared at Dan Ryeon. He watched Seon Muncheok rush up and silently assessed. Seon Muncheok reads situations sharply. He seems to have seen quite a few real fights. Everyone else panicked, their whole bodies tense. At that moment, Beakly Woon tilted his head slightly to avoid his attack. Then he seized the opportunity to counterattack. Beakly Woon also realized their problem. They weren't using their numerical advantage at all. Now he glanced at Seon Woogang to evaluate, especially you, Seon Woogang, right? Your moves seem hesitant. Are you afraid of injuring me? With that skill, Beakly Woon thought inwardly, not bad overall, these three stand out. So let's try provoking them a bit more. So Beakly Woon coldly said, I'm very disappointed in you. Just because you met a strong opponent you fall into chaos like a rabble. It seems the rumor that you're obsessed with failure was true. Seon Woogang muttered a mild rebuke upon hearing it. Seon Muncheok suddenly grabbed his shoulder and warned, listen up, Seon Woogang. You take defense, he sounds terrifying, but in the end he's still watching over us. Using that, the three of us will definitely create an opening. When there's an opening, I'll clear the way. Dan Ryeon, you'll finish it off. You also quickly rushed up and spoke. Looks like you finally got some courage, but it's too late. Seon Woogang also fearlessly ran forward with his sword. He couldn't parry Beakly Woon's strike. Seon Woogang was stunned to see his sword stuck in the ground. A moment later, he was kicked away by Beakly Woon. Dan Ryeon and Seon Muncheok seized the chance and lunged forward. He wasn't very surprised by their move. Beakly Woon standing there judged it to be a coordinated attack. Then Dan Ryeon and Seon Muncheok were astonished to see him evade the strike. Beakly Woon's hand pressed down on the ground. Then he swung his leg and kicked the two of them aside. Beakly Woon returned to his normal stance after executing the move. He was flung back and muttered a curse under his breath. Then he rushed up and launched an attack. What's dangerous in a fight with a master is familiarity. You charge forward confident, I won't act out of mercy, optimistically to the point of absurdity. In the end, Beakly Woon easily tossed Seon Woogang aside. He fell backward, crying out in pain. Seeing everyone's condition, he commented, it seems I expected too much of you. I had hoped you'd at least have a bit of a martial artist's talent. That's it, what a pity, but rules are rules. Beakly Woon was suddenly surprised as he sensed killing intent right before him. He hurriedly swung his sword to dodge an attack. Right now, Beakly Woon was extremely excited. Another surprise, and this technique looked familiar. The Great Disaster Sword, could this be a martial arts technique? Seeing Seon Woogang panting, he asked, are you risking your life just to get through this duel? Then show me your full strength. But Beakly Woon was startled when he suddenly lunged across. Seon Woogang from behind was unleashing countless moves. He was astonished by the sounds coming from behind him. Beakly Woon watched him panting and judged, this guy's talent is terrifying. And at that moment he couldn't help but laugh, leaving Seon Woogang puzzled. At the same time, the system announced that his yin energy stat had increased after a long period. In an instant, Beakly Woon was ecstatic. This one, should I recruit him? Beakly Woon couldn't help but laugh, is that all you've got? Then Seon Woogang snapped awake after a long sleep. He looked around dazed. Was this the righteous heaven sect? Right, yesterday I overdid it. As Jingguang entered the room, Seon Woogang, have you awakened? Seon Woogang, seeing that, blankly called Jingguang's name. Then he remembered the past. Wait, I used the blood sword sect's sword technique right in front of the righteous heaven sect. Surely they've recognized me as someone from the demonic cult. This is a bad situation. I lost control from excitement. If this continues, forget dueling with Marion Martial School. I might even be punished on suspicion of being a demonic spy. What should I do? Before leaving, Jingguang reminded, it's almost assembly time. If you're awake, then go outside. Seon Woogang softly responded, indicating he understood. He suddenly found it strange. Did Jingguang not hear, or was I mistaken thinking the Righteous Heavens sect had noticed? No, the Righteous Heavens sect leader definitely noticed. His expression when he looked at me was very strange. He saw my sword aura and even mentioned my master's name, the Great Disaster Sword. He could have treated me as a demonic spy. Why didn't he tell the other disciples? What exactly is he plotting? Standing before him was Beakly Woon. At that moment, Beakly Woon turned to stare at Seon Woogang, then broke into a wicked smile. So you've come. It hit him like a thunderbolt, the Righteous Heavens sect. A moment later, Beakly Woon announced, first, you've passed the preliminary round. From 15 people, only 5 remain, more than I expected. Seon Woogang exclaimed, and everyone was stunned. Oh my, is it just the two of us left? Now only Ryeon and Jingguang remain. Dan Ryeon and Seon Muncheok. Finally, Seon Woogang was still utterly bewildered. He kept rambling. Over the next 15 days, once per day you will fight the Righteous Heavens sect disciples here. During the rest of each day, everyone should devote themselves to studying techniques. Seowa, distribute them. Seowa quickly complied with Beakley Woon's order. She handed a wooden spear to Sion Munchiok. Sion Munchiok uses a spear, right? He took it and politely acknowledged with a word. Seowa handed out gear to everyone and said, please take yours. As the sect master said, I'm Seowa. You'll be sparring with these people in the coming period. At that moment, Beakley Woon spoke up to remind them, all right, first greet each other and be amicable. Wang Pal stepped forward scratching his head. Hello, I'm Wang Pal. He calmly said, greetings are fine, but long talk tires everyone. Let's start today's matches first. Seowa immediately agreed to Sion Munchiok's suggestion. She readied her fighting stance, so how about 5 versus 2 at once? Saves time, right? Everyone stared at Seowa in bewilderment upon hearing that. Only then did he add his voice, I think that's fine too. You witnessed this touching scene and raised a hand to wipe away a tear. If you're okay with it, fine then, indeed, Seowa is different. Sion Munchiok displeasedly spoke up. It seems you are underestimating us too much. I will finish this, just stand still. Begin, although we've lost to Mujeong Martial School 3 years running. We are not so weak that we could lose to some unknown sect. I will end this as quickly as possible. No sooner had he spoken than he charged straight ahead. Sion Munchiok immediately unleashed an attack, but Seowa easily evaded it. He exerted his power, claiming it's not over yet. Next, Sion Munchiok gathered his strength and launched a decisive strike. He swung the wooden spear toward Seowa without hesitation. In Seowa's eyes there seemed to be no fear. Sion Munchiok confidently said, this is the finishing blow. He was utterly astonished to see her perform a martial technique. The system immediately announced that the unique trait Ming Jiang had been activated. Sion Munchiok was stunned as snow began to cover his spear. What is this? Seowa smiled faintly and said, this will sting a bit, brace yourself. Then she used force to fling Sion Munchiok far away. Sion Woogang was stunned witnessing the scene. Sion Munchiok. Then Seowa bluntly said, now it's my turn, come at me all at once. Jingguang immediately rushed up and threw a punch. I'm not some people, I'm the real. The defensive stance is excellent. The challenger has trained diligently indeed. Upon hearing that, she blushed, thanking him for the compliment. A moment later, he gathered his strength and warned that this move won't be easy to stop at the start. Then she was startled to see Wang Pal rush out to block Jingguang's attack. Wang Pal, his junior disciple. Very quickly, he seized the upper hand. Wang Pal seized the opportunity to counterattack. To deal with me, he was surprised to find his arm restrained. Dan Ryun and the others rushed forward, saying, we admit you're strong, so from now on we'll go all out. They simultaneously surrounded Wang Pal. He blocked attacks from all 4 sides and realized these guys were intercepting every one of our strikes. Sion Woogang, fighting and gritting his teeth, thought, Mujeong Martial School, my foot. Can't even easily beat these members of an unknown sect. Beakley Woon silently watched everything, when suddenly a rope shot straight at Wang Pal's hand. Seowa was startled and alarmed at the sight. He let out a pained little cry, and Dan Ryun stood there dazed, not understanding what was happening. Because Wang Pal was pulling hard on the rope in his hand, Dan Ryun. He hurled Dan Ryun forward so fast he had no time to react. He was knocked flying and struck Sion Woogang, who was standing nearby. Seowa looked at the current situation and said, now there's only one person left. It seems the outcome is clear. Oh Ryong opposite just stood still without moving. Seowa stared at Oh Ryong and asked, do you still want to continue? She blurted out in amazement, unbelievable. We were 5 people, she continued to exclaim. Beakley Woon witnessed everything and smiled. Now it seems settled. By the way, Seowa has only been officially learning martial arts here for about 2 months. They couldn't believe this fact and let out a shout. Sion Woogang stood stunned, wondering what kind of training she had undergone to have such inner strength at such a young age. Meanwhile, he continued, in the future you need to study techniques that can coordinate 2 or more people. When I was in the Muram Alliance, such tactics were a key factor in victory. Especially for you who have lost to Mujeong Martial School for 3 years straight, you will surely feel this even more deeply. To achieve that, you must believe in yourselves and push further, believe in your teammates. That trust will form solid reliance and make individual abilities much stronger. Now the first training session ends here, you all should rest well. Those at the back replied in unison, thank you, sir. Just then Beakley Woon said, as for Sion Woogang, you stay behind. Sion Woogang immediately complied with his instruction. In the distance, Woon Jin was praising, both of them have outstanding ability. Wang Palt humbly responded, you're too kind. Time passed at the vast Mujeong Martial School. At that moment, the system announced the activation of silence mode. ensuring no sound leaked out. Seeing this, he remarked, "You're quite perceptive yourself." "Now let's talk about Jiang next." Xian Wugang stood opposite, silently listening to him. "Why is the demonic cult's pillar, the young sect leader of the Blood Sword sect, practicing at Mujiang Martial School? If you cannot give a satisfactory answer, then prepare yourself." He became even more on guard when he heard that. "What now? Should I run away right now?" Then he was taken aback when Beakly Woon suddenly launched an attack. He stood there and said coldly, "Don't tell me you think you can escape. You don't have that option. Now answer, Xian Wugang, why are you here?" Memories returned to earlier days. At the Blood Sword sect last year, a cold voice rang out. "Did you break the arm of someone who could no longer resist?" "Stand up, Xian Wugang." Hearing this, he did not reply. The Great Disaster Sword shouted angrily, "Why not behead him? At least sever the meridians in his arm so he can't cause trouble anymore. You are the young sect leader of your school. The head of Northodox Murim is a position that should make everyone tremble. How long do you intend to disappoint me? Kill your senior sister." He was stunned to receive this information. "What did you just say?" The old man remained calm and said, "You know your senior sister is on the front lines in the war with the Murim Alliance, right? Whether it's a sneak stab from behind or infiltrating the Murim Alliance posing as a traitor, kill your senior sister and return to me." Xian Wugang couldn't understand and asked, "What did my senior sister do wrong?" Before he could finish, the Great Disaster Sword cut him off. "This is the dark path. Your cheap compassion could cost thousands upon thousands of lives. If you see injustice, I'll order your senior sister to kill you. Don't even think about running. If you dare to go and die, I'll personally finish off your senior sister. One day you'll have to kill me and inherit the Blood Sword sect. If you refuse, I'll kill you and everyone around you. Your only path is to kill me and your senior sister." Xian Wugang had no choice and answered, "Disciple obeys." "The disciple will infiltrate the Murim Alliance as a spy, kill my senior sister, then return." In his heart, he calculated silently, "For now, I'll just stall. Just need to get out of the master's sight. Then I can escape." After that, in reality, when Xian Wugang let out a shout, he charged fiercely toward the rear of Beakly Woon. Seeing this, Yu curiously asked, "You decided to break through head-on? Although your ability to gauge an opponent's strength is still immature, that's not a foolish judgment. Show it then your true strength." Xian Wugang, full of vigilance, asked, "What do you intend to do to me?" Then Beakly Woon charged in grandly, "Didn't you come here to train? Either way, orthodox martial arts can't let you unleash your full power. If you can reveal your true strength, the battle with Mujiang Martial School will be much easier. Prove your worth to me." He tried to defend and grit his teeth, feeling it's a world of difference compared to the entrance exam. Xian Wugang quickly dodged his attack, one slip in its death. Then he seriously gathered his strength, preparing to unleash a move. But Xian Wugang's sword swing surprised Beakly Woon somewhat. He remained calm and said, "At least it's far more useful than your clumsy use of orthodox martial arts, but you are inherently unsuited to unorthodox Murim techniques. That is your nature." He heard that and ground his teeth, asking, "What do you mean?" Beakly Woon immediately countered and said, "I mean you are not fit for the killing sword, the art that is willing to cut everything down to win." Xian Wugang suddenly remembered the past, because that was the unorthodox Murim. Now he gritted his teeth and said, "What do you know?" Beakly Woon bluntly pointed out, "There is hesitation in your sword. You express the most important problem, a lack of killing intent." Xian Wugang, provoked, countered, "What do you know about me to speak so loosely?" Beakly Woon remained calm and struck his fist into his face. "You want to hide it, but your sword itself tells the truth." Xian Wugang was knocked flying, standing dazed there, panting heavily. "You felt puzzled. What is the true principle you pursue?" He shouted in furious indignation, "It's all or nothing anyway. What does this true principle matter?" Beakly Woon stepped forward toward Xian Wugang and swung his sword. "Why are you holding a sword?" He was flustered and didn't know how to answer. Xian Wugang's hand tightened on the sword. "The reason I hold this sword is..." Beakly Woon attacked before he could finish speaking. Two powerful blows collided, and the impact left countless scars on the ground. Then Xian Wugang suddenly dropped to his knees. At that moment, he admitted there was a reason forcing him to become stronger. "My father wasn't a great martial artist, but he kept his word on the battlefield. When everyone else fled, he was the only man who stayed to fight, even if the world called it a senseless death." Xian Wugang remembered the past with fury. The wrongful death of his father drove him nearly mad, yet now he could do nothing. "If I act rashly, I'll die in vain. So I must grow stronger and grit my teeth through it." However, things went beyond his calculation. the result of merely swinging his sword in pursuit of power, was that he was no longer the young master Xian Wugang, but had become the young sect leader of the Blood Sword Sect. Beakley Woon fell silent for a moment, then asked, "Do you regret the past?" Xian Wugang, stunned, answered, "I don't know. I simply want to protect my father's honor, to prove his death wasn't the act of a coward, but of a warrior braver than anyone. As his son and the bloodline of Xian Wugang, I am the heir to his legacy. Yet now I seem to have lost my way. If you want to kill me or report me to the Murim Alliance, go ahead. Other disciples are not involved. I'm the only one hiding my identity to infiltrate." Having learned that information, he sat down and spoke it aloud. "You fight to protect him," he cried out in surprise at the implication of Beakley Woon's words. Seconds later, he flung Xian Wugang away, making him cry out in pain. Seeing Xian Wugang groaning, he ordered, "Stand up. You remind me of a lost boy blinded by hatred. When I left the Beakley clan to join Mujiang Martial School." He listened in bewilderment and blurted, "Beakley clan originated from Mujiang Martial School," while Beakley Woon continued to babble. "I've had experience modifying martial methods, so you don't have to rely on Beakley clan techniques. While others hone their foundations, I'll help you adjust your martial art." Xian Wugang asked in surprise, "You mean you'll teach me?" He stood there nonchalantly and said, "The Murim Alliance won't fall just because they overlook a kid like you." Yet inside, Beakley Woon rejoiced. "A true successor of the 7 sects in 10 heavens has entered here. Excellent." Beakley Woon continued earnestly, "In half a month, I'll dismantle your entire foundation and martial art. You must forget yourself entirely. You may have to endure great pain. Do you have enough trust to follow me?" He voiced his doubt. "Can I become stronger now?" He spoke to reassure him. "Don't worry, that's my role." Scene shifts to the Murim Alliance envoy, where someone says, "I heard the kids from the Martial Aptitude Hall this year are exceptionally talented, right?" Yeagle Pyong confirmed the news. "They're achieving very high results, so the major leaders of the martial forces have begun an underground struggle to compete for them." Sword Saint Wiji Hak, one of the Orthodox martial's top masters in 10 heavens, suddenly recounted that the unorthodox Murim's co-leader proposed a bet on this duel. He said he'd bet on Mujiang Martial School's victory. "If he wins, he'll ask me a small favor, but if he loses, he'll halt all expansion and attacks for a year." Betting with an eyeball to judge people? Is he bragging that he can see things we cannot? Either way, this is an offer we can't refuse given our disadvantage. If they stop attacking, we can reorganize our forces. I'll play it bigger. In this duel, Marion Martial School must not lose under any circumstances. The new referee for this duel will be the senior who graduated from Marion Martial School 10 years ago. The next generation top sword of Wudang, the current prodigy of Wudang Sect, choose Chung Ryu. Meanwhile, Chung Ryu elsewhere sighed, "Beakley Woon at Mujiang Martial School. It's been ages since I heard that name." A groan rose from Mujiang Martial School. "I'm exhausted. Every day it's 2 against 5 in sparring like this. The students from the Martial Aptitude Hall are one thing, but isn't this a bit harsh on us?" Just then Beakley Woon approached and asked, "Already tired?" Siowa was surprised to see him. "Sect Master, when did you arrive?" Beakley Woon calmly said, "All right, I'll reward you then. After the training session at Mujiang Martial School ends, we'll go to the Murim Alliance to watch the duel. There's a blacksmith nearby who once forged swords for me. If you win more than 8 out of 15 sparring matches against Mujiang Martial School's disciples, we will have refined named weapons forged for you." Hearing this, she excitedly asked if he was serious. Siowa blankly spoke up, "What exactly is that?" Beakley Woon immediately explained, "It's crafting a personalized weapon made specifically for each of you." Then she got excited, "Jioga, I love it, I will definitely do it." So later, Dan Rion asked puzzled, "Siowa, how did you already learn the counters to the new fist form we saw yesterday?" Siowa replied very calmly, "Sister, the form from the day before was much harder, he couldn't believe it." A shout. While Sion Munchiok nearby said, "I've actually been reading everyone's form pretty well, but today you two seem especially vigorous, huh?" Wang Pal launched a move and replied, "Because we finally have motivation." He suddenly wondered, is the sect master the type who only treats those he likes well? He heard that and forced a smile, not knowing how to explain. Sion Munchiok behind was yelling, "This poor fool can't be ordered to do nothing. Is it that hard?" Xian Wugang, dazzled, immediately retorted, "No, am I supposed to just sit here wasting time? You told me not to do anything. What did you mean by that?" A second later, he screamed in pain, and Beakley Woon calmly said, "This is a binding rope, originally used to transport violent fiends without destroying their dantian. Whenever you move or try to use unorthodox Murim techniques, it tightens around your body. Of course, there is a way to untie it yourself. Try to break free using your own strength without relying on the body. Wang Pao from afar worriedly asked, Sect Master, are you really favoring the first disciple Xian Wugang? He heard this and panicked. What nonsense are you saying? That's not true, so don't worry. Continue sparring, Xian Munchiok, very excited, said. Show them how much we've improved. Beakley Woon stood to the side, directing. Observe your fellow disciples closely and think about why I told you not to do anything. Everyone continued to fight fervently. He fought while analyzing. In previous sparring matches, whenever someone widened the distance to attack, they would immediately exploit that opening, leaving you no gap to maintain spear range. If it's a problem of spear distance, use footwork and agility. Xian Wugang, dazzled, shouted from an angle. A spearman who relies solely on spear techniques is now using close-range strikes. Since when did he develop that move? Xiaowa began to feel puzzled. What was that last motion? A slip? No, it wasn't. Beakley Woon watched everything and asked, do you see how your fellow disciples have matured? Xian Wugang couldn't help exclaiming. Everyone has improved this much in such a short time. Beakley Woon continued, looking at the scene. You want to grab your sword and rush and right away, don't you? You must be afraid of falling behind. Then the system announced that temporary disciple Xian Munchiok had entered the realm of spear-body unification. Xian Munchiok was planting his spear into the ground, the spear like an extension of his body, as if he could use his body as a spear. Next, he began to seriously perform martial techniques. He couldn't help but beg, please loosen the bindings, I can't just stand here. Beakley Woon coldly said, I told you not to move. If you swing your sword now, you'll never achieve this. Xian Munchiok has accumulated battlefield experience and is gradually finding his own martial way, while you are simply imitating the blood sword Sect's swordsmanship, your senior sister's style. Xian Wugang, backed into a corner, questioned, so what do you want me to do? He stood there calmly and replied, if you keep letting your body be guided by the techniques you've learned, you'll never change your martial habits. Do you think I bound you here for nothing? At that moment he focused and analyzed. If you can't use the body to correct the body's habits, then what needs fixing is the habit of circulating qi. Then Xian Wugang blurted out the words, bloodline. Beakley Woon immediately confirmed the information. Correct, your fellow disciples are experimenting with and practicing new fist forms to escape old ruts, but you must go further. You must completely break down your old internal foundation. Humans have 365 acupoints, of which martial artists use at most 70. You must find the answers among the remaining acupoints. In his mind, Xian Wugang calculated, then find new acupoints and channel your internal force into them to clear them. Pour all your inner power at once to overcome the resistance of the other points. But the system announced that temporary disciple Xian Wugang's internal cultivation was invaded by impure qi and flowed backward. Seeing this, he ordered, don't rush. During the process of opening the points, if this mutated internal force devours you, you'll lose your danshan. Xian Munchiok, fighting, was puzzled. What kind of freakish cultivation is this? A moment later, he cried out in pain, which startled him. Xian Wugang. Beakley Woon saw this and loudly said, don't come over here, this is something the kid must resolve himself. Xian Wugang tried to remind himself, it's come to this, I can't give up, I can't return to that horrible past. I must clear the old acupoints, purge the impure qi, and push it out. The system immediately displayed information. Temporary disciple Tian Yaoqiang began operating the micro-heavenly circulation. He couldn't hold back and let out a scream. After a while, Xian Wugang finally calmed down and panted. Someone beside him asked with concern, are you okay, Xian Wugang? A moment later, his blood suddenly surged, snapping the binding rope. Then Beakley Woon, pleased, approached. So you've finally been able to remove the blood sword Sect's techniques. Congratulations, you've become a blank sheet of paper. Xian Wugang looked up and said, only a blank sheet of paper now? Then you must train me too. I can't be the only one left behind. You guide him out to the training ground and fill that blank sheet with your own sword path. Everyone cheered to see Xian Wugang's return. Inside the forest, someone looked at a corpse inside. Namgung Wu gazed at what lay before him and remarked it had been drained dry of blood. Chung Ha irritably told him, shut up, Namgung Wu. He went on to point out the scar on the neck and the fact the body had been hung up and bled out seems to match the man we've been chasing. She said with a twinge of regret that it got away. Namgung Wu examined for a while and said that indeed the victims have no commonalities. It seems he likes human blood regardless of who it comes from. The way they're handled is too stupid to blame on a cult or demon sect, and we can't rule out a hedonistic serial killer, but perhaps the perpetrator is. He offered his own guess, a monster. This level of damage is too minor for a great demon, yet leaving no traces besides the corpses shows it's very clever. Or should we withdraw and call for backup first? At this, Chung-ha spoke solemnly, we can't allow more victims in the meantime. If it were the Grand Lord, he'd probably pursue as well. Any objections? Namgung-woo immediately replied, no, we'll do whatever the superiors order. Come to think of it, most people in these circumstances end up dead. Should we buy some insurance just in case? He then carved into the tree with a stone, and it read, if missing for more than 1 month, please contact the Sect Master of Righteous Heaven's Sect. At the same time, Beakley Woon lightly muttered, thinking he had a nagging premonition that trouble was about to knock on their door. Time passed, and Beakley Woon stood at the training hall gate and said, 2 weeks of hard training, well done, you lot. However, there's still an idiot who hasn't found his own sword path. Surely you all feel your strength has leapt. Seowa and Wang Pal finally got 8 wins, so as promised, we'll set off to have renowned weapons forged for you. You have every right to be proud. At this rate, I believe you'll complete the second training phase well. Everyone listened to him attentively. Now for the second training phase. You lot go slaughter each other. Scene cuts to elsewhere. He looked at the Murim Alliance Deputy Strategist's note and asked, did you know that recently the number of missing people across Hunan has suddenly spiked? The person opposite Beakley Woon, upon hearing this, asked, missing. The problem is that when they're found, their throats have been cut and their bodies drained of blood, and most victims were civilians traveling alone. Beakley Woon judged after inspection that it's a murderous demon. How is the Murim Alliance responding? Yuryong quickly replied, in Hunan it seems they've already sent young hero Namgung Woo and Master Chung-ha, and for Hubei province I've heard the ferocious Tiger Squad is handling it. He learned the info and thought with satisfaction, no wonder they attended the opening ceremony. If it's those two, there's nothing to worry about. Then Beakley Woon assessed, Chung-ha's martial prowess is top-notch and Namgung Woo is adept at improvisation. If those two join forces, they're high-level experts in the realm, lucky, no need to fret. He silently calculated, good luck with demons, huh? Which brought back an unpleasant memory. He suddenly asked, so when do you plan to tell the Marion Martial School disciples? Just then a loud noise rang out, startling both of them. After that, Jingguang was struck and rolled into a room, crying out in pain. He and Xian Wugang ran elsewhere, fighting as they argued. Yuryong, pinned by the door, wondered, you dodged that alone? Beakley Woon concernedly asked Han, are you okay? And saw him force out, probably fine. Then he complained, what are those kids doing, embarrassing themselves in front of honored guests? Yuryong asked with some worry, but leaving it like that, is that okay? Do you know who's training the youngsters at Marion Martial School? Heard rumors that the Taiji warrior Chung Ryu has reappeared in the martial world, and Beakley Woon was startled and alarmed upon receiving that news. Then he asked a few questions. Chung Ryu, Wudang Sect's top man of the next generation, isn't he considered the one closest to the title, the world's #1? Beakley Woon was extremely surprised and thought, that guy is directly teaching them. This is really beyond my expectations. That guy is the sort of natural genius who finds learning as easy as turning his hand. Where would he get the knack for teaching others? He couldn't help speaking up. Is this Marion Martial School class really full of talent like that? Outside, Woon Jin proactively took the blame, apologizing that we're incompetent. He looked embarrassed. Are you okay? They seem a bit strange. Beakley Woon immediately reassured them. Don't worry, in the 4 years I trained at Marion Martial School, I faced that guy in the finals of every tournament, and not once did I lose to him. Yuryong was utterly shocked. Not once. Suddenly he stepped forward and asked, this is a bit abrupt, but what was the sect master's sword name back then? He heard calmly, didn't I tell you? People used to call me White Sword Dragon, but that was over 11 years ago when I left my master. Woon Jin couldn't believe it and blurted out, White Sword Dragon, could it be the former Heavenly Squad? Are you the legendary senior, the Righteous Heavens Sect leader? Henceforth we will absolutely obey orders. Beakley Woon hurriedly said, that's ancient history, now I'm just the Righteous Heavens Sect leader, so you all have been doubting me this whole time. First of all, everyone has worked hard this past month, you've kept up better than I expected. Isn't now the time to take a little break? Unexpectedly, Dan Ryon immediately started training. No need, we can still manage. Seeing this, he angrily shouted, shut up and listen, you little brats. At that, everyone calmed down and listened to Beakley Woon. At this moment, Sion Munchiok stared blankly at his palm. But Sect Master, we're really fine. Strangely, no matter how hard we train, the next day we feel as fit as ever and our wounds seem to heal much faster. He thought for a moment and realized it's because he had put them on the temporary disciple list, so they enjoy enhanced recovery effects. Then Beakley Woon reminded them, even so, you still need rest to prepare for the remaining month. mental fatigue shouldn't be taken less seriously than physical tiredness. So today, rest to your heart's content. For martial artists, going to Yuyang's Dongting Lake is also a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Everyone quickly followed his orders. Beakly Woon suddenly remembered something. And one more thing. Though it's only temporary for now, you are members of the Righteous Heavens Sect. If you cause trouble outside, by the time training ends, I'll have you crawl to the Murim Alliance on all fours to report to me. They quickly replied, we'll take that to heart. Dongting Lake, here we come. Woonjin couldn't help saying, if only Seowa and Wang Pal came along too, it'd be so much fun. Surely everyone has many places they'd like to visit, but we can't stay long, so plan carefully. Sion Munchiok proactively suggested, then first we must see Dongting Lake's famous spot. Oh, Ryong is right up ahead, everyone's looking forward to it, let's go eat. But the waiter's words deflated everyone's mood. Sorry, guests, we're full. As you can see, the first and second floors are full. The third floor remains, but it's reserved for entertaining the region's great heroes. At that price, Sion Munchiok immediately dragged Oh Ryong away. Come on, wake up. She still wanted to get in and struggled in protest. He reminded them and also warned, don't spend extravagantly, we'll find another place. Just then Gawal approached, how about I pay for everyone? But with one condition, tell me about the person training you youngsters here. She took off her hat and offered to Beakly Woon, is that okay? Xian Wugang hearing this wondered who Gawal was and secretly guessed. Blue eyes. She recalled the past when an old man said, Gawal, I've found an opponent for you, I just discovered an extremely interesting rival. She thought back on that memory. At first, when I heard the Yellow Dragon Hall mention it, I just took it for idle talk as usual. His temperament is impulsive, so you can't trust him on important matters. But my first impression of him at the Righteous Heavens Sect's opening ceremony was truly deep. I wanted to meet him with an equally strong impression. At least to encounter him as an equal. I had planned to open a fabric shop to build a reputation in this area before seeking him out. My tailoring skills need no praise. Yellow Dragon Hall had already warned me, if I didn't come, wouldn't they send an invitation anyway? I was determined and was building my business when. Back to reality, Gawal exclaimed in surprise, Auntie, you still haven't been contacted even once, how could that be? Orion quickly poured wine to soothe her. Sect Master is wrong, have another cup, sis. She blinked and asked, I'm sis. Orion calmly replied, whoever treats with wine is the sis, isn't that so? Sion Munchiok, sitting beside them, added that they had assumed she was a spy from the Unorthodox Alliance. Suddenly asking about the Sect Master caught them off guard. Gawal understood his guess. It's okay, because of this appearance I get misunderstood a lot. Sion Munchiok hurriedly explained, I didn't mean that, sorry. She suddenly wondered, hasn't the Righteous Heavens Sect Master mentioned me at all? Not knowing how to explain, Xian Wugang spoke up, he probably forgot. Gawal was deeply hurt, how could that be? Woonjin rushed forward to cover his mouth. What a thoughtless head. Xian Wugang immediately clarified that the master was just too busy, so it wasn't intentional forgetfulness. Right now he's training hard for us, so all the trivial tasks have piled up. She understood and said, true, the pressure from that bet with the Unorthodox Alliance must be no joke. Everyone was astonished. A bet? Gawal smiled and said, seeing your reactions, you probably don't know. Before the grand tournament between the two schools, the Murim Alliance and the Unorthodox Alliance agreed to halt disputes. They even made a wager on their ability to judge people. In the wager, the Unorthodox Alliance bet on Mujiang Martial School's victory, while the Murim Alliance bet on Muryun Martial School winning. Hearing this, he angrily slammed the table, betting on the grand tournament. This wasn't a match the Unorthodox Alliance should meddle in. She continued, if the Unorthodox Alliance lost the bet, they'd cease all attacks and expansion for 1 year. See, the wager's terms are shocking, right? In return, if they win, Murim Alliance only has to grant one small request from the Unorthodox Alliance, so Murim Alliance had no reason to refuse. Now the entire Murim Alliance secretly hopes you will fail, because either way you have been turned into pawns in the Unorthodox Murim's grand game. When Sion Munchiok learned the truth, he was furious. Did the Supreme Leader use us as sacrificial pawns? We thought we'd finally face them on even ground. Oh, Ryong angrily shouted, do you think I can swallow this, even if I have to confront those Murim Alliance curs immediately? He interjected. Think of the sect. Xian Wugang and I have nothing to lose, but you must remember you belong to a sect under the Murim Alliance. In this case, even if we lose the grand tournament, our honor won't be damaged. Instead, we might receive compensation from the Murim Alliance, so it's not all that bad. Orion fixed her gaze on him. Do you really think that? Those with nothing to lose like you just need to win. As for those of us who have things to lose, we must step back, throw a few hits, and accept defeat. Ah. Xian Munchiok bluntly stated the truth. That's right. Oryong provoked hissed through her teeth. Do you want to die, Xian Munchiok? At that moment, Xian Wugang slammed the table. Both of you stop now. Anyway, didn't the sect master already know about this? What is he ultimately planning? Elsewhere, two people discussed what to do next and speculated that the Murim alliance would continue to apply pressure. Beakley Woon smiled and said, I have no reason to dance to those grown-ups' tune. Once they come to me, they're my disciples. This seems like it will be an act of resistance against the Murim alliance. So, will you lend me a hand? Yuryong hurriedly waved it off. Why would I turn my back on the Murim alliance? That's a bad deal for me. You still try to persuade for mutual benefit. If not, try asking the fellow standing behind the crowd. He chuckled and asked, since when did you know? Beakley Woon replied calmly, you weren't exactly hiding it. Just then a man came to report, Righteous Heavens Sect, Merchant Group, big news. Martial artists from the Murim Alliance and Unorthodox Alliance are gathering. He asked, somewhat surprised, what, at a time like this they're going to start a large-scale war? The man rushed to deny it, not human foes, sir. The 100 demons are advancing toward Dongting Lake. Meanwhile, in the forest the 100 demons were growling, their murderous aura roaring as if each word meant, kill humans and eat them. Beakley Woon knew some information about the 100 demons. A yokai realm is land formed around where a monster establishes dominion after becoming a great demon. As long as you don't step into that territory, you'll be fine. The problem is lesser demons are drawn back to where the great demon just emerged. And their destination is where humans live. People call that the 100 demons. The reporting man said the 100 demons are heading straight for Dongting Lake. The source is Beisheng, estimated scale about 250. From that information, you could infer that a great demon had formed. He continued, also, a month ago, Chung Ha, the elder, and Namgung Wu went missing while investigating a disappearance. Beakley Woon frowned and asked, both of them? The man reported that someone had found a mark at the entrance to the Yokai realm, nodding that if they hadn't returned after a month to report to the Righteous Heavens Sect. Then he immediately flew off. I'll go to Beisheng. Someone behind questioned, aren't you going to the Yuhyang muster? Beakley Woon calmly answered, a summons has been issued. The major sects in the region will gather there. I don't need to attend. The man grew more puzzled. Aren't the enforcers of the great sects at Dongting Lake? Beakley Woon turned to explain. They aren't obliged to respond to the summons. Their priority is to protect the champions of the two great schools. The Righteous Heavens Sect's branch at Yuhyang will arrange their return properly. More importantly, we must purge the great demon before it absorbs all the yokai energy, otherwise. Beakley Woon inwardly recalled having once heard, Woon of mine, you have an interesting fate, truly sweet. He spoke the crucial point, this place will turn into a hellscape. In the distance, the sky was covered in a strange purple hue. Oh Ryong, furious, shouted, we must ask the Righteous Heavens Sect whether the Murim Alliance really treats us as sacrificial pawns and what the sect master's intentions are. Just then someone suddenly rushed into the room. While everyone was stunned, Guang Yon spoke up, good, everyone is here. Guang Yon, the Murim Alliance captain at Yuhyang, introduced himself. I am Guang Yon, the local commander at Yuhyang. Right now, the 100 demons are coming here. This place is about to become a battlefield. All of you, quickly return to the training area. Oh Ryong, bewildered, asked, do you mean we should desert the battlefield? He promptly denied it. Not desertion but retreat. Protecting you is the Murim Alliance's top priority, that's the rule. Oryong quickly retorted, we can fight too. He glared at them, this is an order. How many major sects do you think are around here? I mean, we don't need wet behind the ears kids like you. When she still hesitated, Guang Yon snapped, I won't accept objections. Higher-ups issue orders, subordinates follow, no reasons needed. Oryong hurriedly said, no, sir. Xian Wugang suddenly felt something off. The words weren't wrong, but he seemed overly anxious. Then he reminded them, then just return as ordered, break time is over. Oryong grew curious, what's going on? Suddenly the 100 demons, Xian Munchiok whispered, speculating that it seemed the commander was deceiving them. Why insist on forcing us back to the training area and claim that a place with so many things to protect is about to become a battlefield? That commander must know the defenses will be breached. Woonjin received the news, puzzled. What did you say? Didn't everyone just hear it? The nearby major sects will, before he finished, Xian Wugang cut in. What if the major sects don't arrive in time? That's why he plans to fight inside the city and order those of us who need protection back to the training area. Xian Munchiok, still level-headed, said, those are only suppositions, we must obey orders from above. Someone angrily shouted, Xian Munchiok, what's wrong with you today? He calmly said, as I said earlier, think of our sect. Suddenly he was cut off. No, if we flee now, all the common people here will die. The sect master already said that while we're here, we temporarily belong to the Righteous Heavens sect. As members of the Righteous Heavens sect, who would abandon the people and run in this situation? Then Xian Wugang confidently asserted, of course not. Am I wrong? Then Xian Wugang confidently affirmed again, of course not. Oh Ryong laughed and said, and what we bear isn't just the sect. As enforcers of martial order, we're pillars of righteousness. People of the right path would never flee in this situation. Am I wrong? Xian Munchiok scratched his head and said, if we retreat first and then are forced to fight, it shouldn't be a problem. Only then did he seem satisfied and say, that's better, finally, a sensible line. He then ordered Xian Wugang to hurry and quickly assess the scale of the 100 demons. Woon Jin and Oh Ryong, you two check the surrounding terrain. Xian Munchiok and I will scout possible ambush sites before they arrive. From now on, we will begin the hunt for the 100 demons. Ga Wall sadly spoke from the back, so that's it, you've all forgotten about me too. In the forest, Beakley Woon assessed the situation. When he was still with the merchant group, the first lesson he taught his crew was survival and retreat. If Namgung Wu and Chung Ha are still holding out inside, their food and water must be nearly gone. He couldn't help but say, is it this place? The infestation has spread a lot. I have a bad feeling, finish this quickly. The 100 demons kept growling, looking terrifying. It was displeased, thinking the intruders aren't them. Just because they toyed with a couple of humans, they dared disturb me. But thanks to that, I awakened into a great demon. Yet somehow they managed to hide right inside my domain. Lowly humans. The 100 demons roared in anger, come out at once. Chung Ha hid behind a tree and assessed that one's bloodthirsty, though unwilling to admit it, as you said, we should have finished it off before it awakened. Namgung Wu immediately replied, of course, stop wasting time showing off, what's the use of useless power? She complained, displeased. I know, stop nagging, I still have enough strength to kill you. Just about had it caught if only that guy hadn't shown up. He hastily raised a hand to warn, quiet, it's coming. Chung Ha then rushed forward, surprising the 100 demons. She boldly launched an attack, looking for us are you, you shrimp brain. It was counterattacking Chung Ha when Namgung Wu launched a sudden strike. In a flash, the 100 demons took a sword strike from him. She looked pleased that it hit, and Namgung Wu asked with concern, are you all right? Chung Ha hurriedly warned, idiot, watch ahead. And it used force to fling him to the side. Namgung Wu lay dazed on the ground and let out a groan. She cried his name in alarm as the 100 demons approached, when suddenly one of its arms was chopped clean off by someone. The 100 demons was utterly surprised by the sudden strike. It screamed in pain and rage. At that moment, Beakley Woon appeared, smiling. Lucky you, I saved you the trouble of looking. Chung Ha excitedly ran up to call the team leader. He immediately corrected her. You should call them the Righteous Heavens sect. These guys. Namgung Wu's lying on the ground muttered, you're only arriving now. It a bit late. Beakley Woon smiled and replied, I've been very busy lately, and I didn't expect I'd still have to come clean up the battlefield for you all at this hour. Then he looked ahead seriously, preparing to fight. The 100 demons charged fiercely toward Beakley Woon. She shouted, Sect Master of the Righteous Heavens Sect, one strike to the head will do it. He found it strange. Really, it's just one great demon. Surely 2 people could handle it. The 100 demons stood unharmed before Beakley Woon. Then it quickly leapt up to taunt, foolish, let me give you a hand. He was startled by the sight before him. Beakley Woon, on full alert, told that person to come over. And the one replied with a greeting, long time no see, Beakley Woon. Black Knight appeared and exclaimed, indeed, it's been a long time, you're really surprising me. Why are you here, Black Knight? A curious monster stared at Black Knight. Your demonic power seems deep. I'll eat you alive and turn you into my nourishment. A few seconds later, the white-haired demon hiding behind a tree watched her stroll by indifferently and thought to herself that beheading someone just for blocking the way was a terrifying power indeed. I want to become like that too. So in the days that followed, it frantically hunted humans. It watched people fall into traps hanging upside down from trees. Please save me. Suddenly it looked up at that person and opened its mouth. Am I scary? As it drank human blood, it secretly longed for more, to become an even more horrifying existence. Now I am a hunter. Humans must fear me. Back in the present, Sun Wukong was so excited studying the new sword that he forgot the white-haired demon seething behind him. Seeing you ignore it, it angrily slashed with its claws. Don't underestimate me. At the same time, Xiamen Chiok loudly warned, wake up, it's not over yet. Having said that, Sun Wukong leapt up to dodge the incoming claw swipe. Behind it, a spear suddenly drove straight into the demon's chest. Xiamen Chiok, seeing this, smiled with satisfaction. Seeing it restrained, Sun Wukong picked up his sword to join the fight. now it's my turn. Suddenly, the demon threw a punch, forcing him to quickly dodge to the side. At the same time, a rope wrapped tightly around its wrist, immobilizing it. Orion gripped the rope and yelled. Just then, Woon Jin, Sun Wukong, who narrowly escaped death, politely said, "Thanks, Orion." Over there, Woon Jin and Oh Ryong rushed forward to pummel the demon. Amitabha. Seeing reinforcements arrive, Xiamen Chiok cheerfully called out, "Thanks, Dan Ryong." The 5 from Mujiang Martial School joined forces to eliminate the 100 demons. At this, Dan Ryong looked at the demon curiously. "Who is that guy? Its aura differs from other demons." Guang Yon replied, "Perhaps he is the master of this demon realm." She was surprised to see him wounded. Music Yang's branch commander Guang Yon continued to instruct, "Beware its claws, they unleash a very bizarre attack." Dan Ryong, having heard this, swung the rope. "We'll handle the rest from behind." The rope tightened around the demon's neck. It refused to yield and swung an arm to strike her. When Woon Jin appeared behind it and kicked hard into its back, Dan Ryong let out a breath as she took in the scene before her. Xiamen Chiok, itchy-fisted, blurted out, "We've just been on defense, now finish it and switch to offense." Everyone shouted in unison. Then they charged one after another, attacking the demon from different sides. The white-haired demon was driven back and begrudgingly thought, "I'm strong, I must eat flesh." Suddenly it changed direction and ran off. When it approached the other demons, it extended its claws and snapped them shut, biting straight in. Seeing this, everyone was stunned. "What the hell is that? Is it crazy? It's even eating other demons." Guang Yon immediately ordered it killed. The demon's fear only fueled its strength. Over here, the demon tore open a fellow creature's body. It absorbed the fear and growled, "I am the hunter." Woon Jin watched its aura grow and grit his teeth in worry. Truly a ferocious menace. Not only demons, it's also feeding on human fear. Guang Yon looked at him and ordered, "Run. Follow my instructions." Sun Wukong, charge. Yes. Guang Yon continued issuing commands. "Kang up, Chiok, restrain it, step forward and create an opening, don't give it any gaps." Sun Wukong spoke up, "Though it's hard to keep up, it's worth a try." Suddenly he looked toward Guang Yon, but the heavenly foot chi technique consumes the user's lifespan. Given the branch chief's state, even a moment of channeling is dangerous. He can't sustain it. Seeing the demon restrained, Sun Wukong shouted, "Xiamen Chiok." Now, Oh Ryong and Xiamen Chiok thank the folks from Mujiang Martial School and finish it in one strike. A chained wind thunder assault, frenzy wind thunder. Sun Wukong stared in panic as his sword snapped in two. His blade couldn't take it. Seizing the moment of his lapse, the demon lunged and closed. It grabbed his limbs and hoisted him up. The demon gleefully declared, "I win, I'll survive." On this side, Xiamen Chiok screamed, "No, Sun Wukong." Just as the situation peaked, a power cleaved the demon's body in two, accompanied by a familiar voice. "Well done, now you can rest." Sun Wukong fell to the ground, looked up and said, "What on earth is going on?" A pair of silent feet stepped forward. Everyone shouted in unison, "Sect Master." Beakley Woon looked at them puzzled. "Why are you all here?" Elsewhere, Black Knight dissipated and comforted. "You are stronger now, my child." Though this plan hit a snag, the future looks all the more promising. On this side, a mob rushed over and charged forward, leaving no demon alive. Beakley Woon quickly joined the battle. Fighting while pondering, Black Knight showed up too. "Faster than I expected. Looks like we must speed up the plan." After the 100 demons purge, a voice of discontent rang out. Could only 5 Mujiang Martial School disciples have stopped such a swarm? They won't let wild rumors bury the sacrifice and effort of those who risked their lives. Just say that Mujiang Martial School's disciples were useless. That the fighters were the warriors of the Murim Alliance. At that, Guang Yon abruptly cut in. As the ancients said, "Nang Trung Kai Tri, the needle kept in the pouch will one day show itself." Guang Yon, branch head and deputy strategist of the 3rd Army Command. Yang Jin snorted in anger. "You know they must never become heroes." The mid and minor sects had backed Muryun Martial School in the wager with the unorthodox alliance. If Mujiang Martial School keeps pressing its advantage like this, Guang Yon slowly asked, "Can't we apply pressure to force their defeat in the contest?" He faltered, "All for the greater good, would you defy your superiors?" Guang Yon then loudly confirmed, "Mujiang Martial School is also a cornerstone of the Murim Alliance. They are the talents who will uphold the Murim Alliance in the future." Seeing him so furious he spit blood, Yang Jin rose flustered. Guang Yon, branch head. After composing himself, Guang Yon spoke, "Report back to our superiors that at least the Mujiang Martial School disciples I saw that day aren't just green kids who haven't cleaned their noses, but true martial artists." At the same time, in a certain eatery, everyone from Mujiang Martial School was eating and chatting boisterously. "See, I slew 22 demons. If only Ping Juk and Wang Pal had seen that. I think I also took down about 22. What? Then I'm 25. Sun Wukong forced a smile to diffuse things. "Sorry, sir, they're not usually like this." Beakley Woon calmly poured wine. "It's fine. After a life and death fight, some excitement is natural. By the way, have you heard that the Murim Alliance wants our side to fail?" Upon hearing this, the disciples fell silent, noticing the mood shift. Beakley Woon nonchalantly drank and said, "Seems you've heard. So what do you plan to do?" Sun Wukong replied seriously, "Rumor has it that only if we lose will the unorthodox alliance refrain from invading for a year. If we win, their sect will suffer great disaster. Besides, it's for the greater good." Beakley Woon set his cup down and cut in. "If the Murim Alliance respected you even a little, they'd have quietly asked you to stand down this time, but they didn't. Want to know why? Because you've been weak for 4 years and haven't once beaten Marion Martial School. Failure was obvious, so why bother asking?" Siowa, seeing tensions rise, stepped forward to mediate. "Master, calm down." Still, Beakley Woon soberly pointed out that this is how the Murim Alliance currently sees your true strength and reality. "Now I ask again, what do you want to do?" Everyone shouted in unison, "We want to win." He smirked upon hearing that. "Fine, then win. Defeat Marion Martial School and prove that the Alliance leader is blind. Show them you are also the pillars of the Murim Alliance." Any objections? Everyone answered decisively, "None." Hearing this, Beakley Woon happily announced, "Good, today the NH letter 1EA1C Duong branch head is treating. Feast to your heart's content." Everyone cheered loudly. Elsewhere, Gwang Yeon, recuperating, felt a chill run down his spine. "What's this? A bad premonition? Could there be another monster left?" At this, Beakley Woon exuberantly declared, "1 month left. Tomorrow hell awaits you, so enjoy yourselves now." Suddenly, the system popped up. Thanks to the active efforts of the sect master and temporary disciples, Righteous Heaven Sect's reputation has soared. The sect's total level rose to rank 9. The evolution status advanced to the next stage. You may now set the development direction for the sect. Choose the path the sect will pursue. Facilities, excluding research, will unlock according to that orientation. Expansion: possess hundreds of disciples or more, each running a separate armed organization contributing to the power's stability and growth. Upon achievement, reputation spreads faster in the Murim. You may establish a branch sect, and recruitment rates increase by 50%. Heritage lineage preservation is a sect form created to prevent martial arts corruption when passed to later generations, admitting only a few successors to inherit and using that art to bring fame. Privilege of choice: true line disciples growth rate plus 30%, sect masters growth rate plus 20%. Large rewards for creating new techniques. If total disciples are under 10, the chance to fully grasp the master's art increases greatly. Time quietly passed until it was already pitch dark. At Sangshan, near the Murim Alliance guest house, Beakley Woon was engrossed in studying the screen when a voice called out, "Sect Master, the food is served." He paused and said, "All right, eat before it gets cold." When he finished speaking, he quietly decided that once a direction was chosen it couldn't be changed, so he'd put this matter aside for now. Suddenly, Siowa looked at him and called out, "Ah, Sect Master. Are the disciples of Marion Martial School really that outstanding? Why does everyone act as if their victory is a foregone conclusion?" Beakley Woon answered honestly, "I didn't see it with my own eyes, so I can't be certain." "But Siowa, do you know how the grand tournament between the 2 academies of the Murim Alliance actually works?" Siowa replied innocently, "Isn't it just one-on-one matches? I have experience with that, you know." He turned back to her and explained, "Exchanges are usually like that, but the grand tournament is different. The 2 great academies cultivate talents who will become the pillars of the Murim. After graduation, they'll be assigned to the Murim Alliance's armed teams, gain several years of real combat experience, then return to their home sects to become core leaders. Thus the goal isn't mere fighter training but forging talent with sound judgment and exceptional battlefield experience." The grand tournament is divided into 3 events. First is the obstacle course challenge. Second is individual combat. And finally, team competition. Whichever side wins 2 out of 3 events takes that year's overall victory. Rumor has it that for 4 years straight, Marion Martial School hasn't tasted victory. Upon hearing this, Siowa was flustered. "Oh dear, our juniors tried so hard during the training. So what's your estimate of our chances, Sect Master?" Suddenly someone burst out laughing and cut in, "Of course Marion Martial School is a sure bet to win, right?" Beakley Woon looked at the man before him and said, "You who just arrived, you're Ping Juk from Marion Martial School, same class as Beak family's young master Beakley Woon." The man boasted, "Even after 7 years apart you still remember this old rival right away." Siowa asked softly, "Who is he?" Beakley Woon pointed and introduced, "That's Ping Juk, to be precise." "Right, I'm Ping Juk, you bastard." Beakley Woon casually said, "Ah, that fellow, long time no see." Pingu is the young master of the Ping clan. When I was at Mujiang Martial School, I ran into him often. Wang Pal stammered, young master of the Ping clan, we should pay respects. Ping Juk patted his shoulder and said, no need, ditch those old-fashioned rituals. Wang Pal thought to himself that the pressure was heavy, he couldn't move. Ping Juk sat down and casually asked, you came to watch the grand tournament too? I hear you're in charge of those Mujiang Martial School kids this time. Beakley Woon replied, don't worry about it. The man laughed loudly. Since Muryan Martial School already has the win in the bag, why bother watching? So confident, eh? Even so, Ping Juk didn't mind bragging. Of course, the youngsters aren't a golden generation. Still, their spirit reminded him of his younger self. Beakley Woon casually hinted something. What? Then the door to dawn is open. The man got angry. What did you say? Beakley Woon bared his teeth at him. In your era, did you ever once beat Mujiang Martial School? Ping Juk began to stutter, nearly at a loss for words. But Beakley Woon didn't spare him and stressed the truth that they'd never won even once. Hearing that, the man loudly cursed, those guys are different now. Back then, if not for you, we'd have won. Beakley Woon provoked with relish, shall we make a wager? Ping Juk looked skeptical. What trick are you planning? Just looking at your sullen face makes my stomach hurt. At that, his expression hardened. Scared, are you? Seeing this, Ping Juk was too angry to speak. After a moment, he accepted the challenge. Fine, since Muryan Martial School will win anyway, what are you putting up? Beakley Woon replied immediately. The Divine Doctor's Chen Order token, the legendary token of the Divine Doctor, said to restore life. At this, Ping Juk exclaimed in astonishment, what, you hold that life-saving treasure? He nodded in confirmation. Yes, but in exchange you must wager Hanqiao. Rumor throughout the Jianghu says the Ping clan possesses it. That iron talisman emits endless cold qi. Upon hearing that name, his face went pale. That's right, but that's not something I can just casually. Beakley Woon egged him on, scared already. Sure enough, a second later, Ping Juk loudly agreed. Fine, bet it is, what's there to fear? And where's your Mujiang Martial School pride now? Weren't you leading them? He casually reached for the arriving food. The man blinked in confusion. What, you wonder? Beakley Woon replied slowly. They're undergoing special training. Rewinding to earlier, the disciples were all bewildered. Special training, sir, so we have to depart now. Beakley Woon looked at them and said, yes, the objective is simple, reach the Murim Alliance safely. Sun Wukong asked in surprise, that's it. He then issued instructions, yes, but move in the assigned groups. Sun Wukong and Xiamen Chiok are Team 1. Woon Jin and Dan Ryo make up Team 2, and Oh Ryong goes solo as Team 3. The deadline is 10 days. All teams must gather at the Murim Alliance 3 days before the grand tournament. Everyone replied in unison, acknowledging the order. Night fell in a forest. Xiamen Chiok and Sun Wukong sat by the fire chatting. You seem full of thoughts. Why are you so worried about the grand tournament? Well, something like that. Sun Wukong fell into pensiveness. No turning back now. Switching sword schools didn't sever ties with the Blood Sword Sect. He wondered how the Blood Sword Sect master had reacted. Suddenly, there was a rustling sound from behind. The two immediately turned on guard. Xiamen Chiok asked softly, did you hear that? A girl stepped forward and said, good vigilance. The two replied in unison, who are you? She drew her sword as she introduced herself. I'm Heavenly Squad Captain Moyang Hai Yon. Hearing the name, the two were puzzled. Why is the Heavenly Squad Captain here? Hai Yon quickly explained, I want to spar with disciples of Mujiang Martial School. She launched into a no-stance duel. Hai Yon suddenly asked, you two are Sun Wukong and Xiamen Chiok, right? Now draw your swords. Sun Wukong raised a hand to stop her. Wait, why would the Heavenly Squad Captain personally come to duel us? Hai Yon's voice rang out, to repay an old debt. On the night of the 100 demons, you saved 2 of my members. Shouldn't I return the favor? It's our squad's rule. A sword strike came at them. Sun Wukong quickly dodged. So fast, at the same time you're puzzled. Why do you do this to us? Hai Yon immediately answered his question. Other teams will face our remaining members as well. Indeed, other members likewise met similar opponents. Meanwhile, Xiamen Chiok was fighting Hai Yon with all his might. As Sun Wukong drew his sword, he realized this was the sect master's intent in urging them to reach the Murim Alliance safely. Xiamen Chiok said, then it's an honor to spar with the Heavenly Squad Captain. Sun Wukong immediately added, please teach us. Hai Yon smiled faintly, likewise. The next morning, as the group entered, the crowd shouted, they're here, also the disciples of Muryan Martial School. Namgung Hyun felt annoyed, muttering about the fuss. That's why I wanted to go quietly. Namgung Wu suddenly chimed in. Hey Namgung Hyun, hold it, they're here to cheer for us. He found it baffling. Cheer for us. Why bother? Beating those Mujeong martial school people is a given, right? Namgung Hyun refused to answer. Don't talk to me, you're bringing bad luck now. Namgung Hyun grimaced, really no manners at all. Suddenly Namgung Wu slung an arm around him and laughed loudly. Even if that's the truth, shouting it out like that will get you scolded for sure. Namgung Hyun interrupted in a sudden voice. My juniors. It seems you all are misunderstanding something. How can you already declare victory when you don't even know this year's opponents? Namgung Hyun wondered. What can change in just 1 year? We've been training a year too, just like them. The white-haired man answered solemnly. This time will be different because Beakley Woon is on their side. Zan looked back in shock. What? What did you just say, brother? The white-haired man looked at her and said, Now that you mention it, I remember he's from your clan, isn't he? I heard he's taking on the role of trainer for the Mujeong Martial School disciples this time. That fellow is full of surprises. No matter how dire the situation, he always finds a way to snatch victory. As long as he's there, you must never let your guard down. You are no longer the hunters. The disciples of Mujeong Martial School are the ones standing in that position now. From this point on, face the battle with the mindset of someone who refuses to be hunted. Become the fierce tiger that pounces back at those hunters. Asan frowned and lowered his voice to ask, That bastard, has he arrived? A long yawn echoed through the forest. The unorthodox alliance leader lounged idly atop the carriage roof, bored to death. I wish some highwayman would show up to entertain us, the great disaster sword loudly chided. Please be mindful, Alliance leader. The territory ahead belongs to the Murim Alliance now, right? He suddenly asked, You dislike attending this grand martial gathering that much? The great disaster sword sighed in helplessness. It's a gamble that brings us no profit and risks everything. I won't do anything foolish, trust me on how you feel right now. But do we really have to agree to a truce at this moment? If we keep the war going for at least another half-year, we'd find it easier to deal with the Murim Alliance later. The Left Path Alliance leader grinned, baring his teeth. If the truce loses the bet, then we'll just win, won't we? The great disaster sword shouted. This isn't a bet we can win. Do you think the Murim Alliance will let the Mujeong Martial School disciples have an assured victory? As long as the Murim Alliance isn't foolish, they won't dare apply direct pressure for fear we'll expose them. Mujeong Martial School's disciples aren't minor sectlings. Wouldn't they be willing to do whatever it takes to win, so long as it doesn't harm their own sect? Hearing this, he sat up and replied with interest, You're not wrong, indeed, I intended to agree to a truce. But I have no intention of losing this bet. The great disaster sword among your disciples, isn't there one you couldn't take in? What a pity knowing this and yet leaving him be is such a waste. The Murim Alliance is vast and boundless, so they fail to notice a raw gem rolling right at their feet. From the Murim Alliance's perspective, it would seem a petty request and one hard to refuse. The great disaster sword asked, What do you mean? The unorthodox alliance leader suddenly smiled slyly. All I want is a little seed of doubt that's enough to create a crack. Isn't it time we start investing then? At the Murim Alliance in the training hall of the Mujeong Martial School, impatient voices rang out. Why is there still no news? Someone hurriedly explained. They're probably just a little late, don't be too anxious, wait a bit longer. The Mujeong Martial School headmaster Yeon Goon bowed his head in worry. Even though they were told not to win, the kids still entered the tournament. Suddenly, an announcement outside declared the head of the unorthodox alliance has arrived. Hearing this, Yeon Goon breathed a sigh of relief, finally here. First, let everyone rest after the journey. But before he finished, people began shouting that it wasn't the disciples. The unorthodox alliance has arrived. Hyo-so was surprised. Earlier than our disciples? Yeon Goon shouted angrily. What did you say? He gritted his teeth and glared over toward the opposite side. Beakley Woon was leisurely enjoying a drink. No wonder it was expensive tea. The flavor was superb. Suddenly Yeon Goon interjected. Beakley, former team leader, when exactly will your disciples arrive? He turned to him and replied, I'm currently the sect master of the Righteous Heavens sect, and they're almost here. Yeon Goon, hearing this, spoke up. I know you have outstanding talent in training and instruction. You've elevated the Commerce Heaven Guild to its current heights, no argument there. Beakley Woon cut in. It's nothing, you're making me embarrassed. He immediately barked out, hear me out. However, time isn't something we can just conjure at will, he calmly retorted. As long as they arrive by the competition day, that's enough. Yeon Goon grew impatient. What about the welcoming ceremony? The Marian Martial School disciples returned early, and once the Unorthodox Alliance delegation arrives, we'll hold the welcome ceremony as planned. Ignoring his fuss, Beakley Woon folded his arms and said nonchalantly, "The Unorthodox Alliance leader doesn't care about such rituals." Yonggun looked furious still, as a pillar of the Orthodox Murim isn't face important. Suddenly a disciple rushed in to report, "Master, preparations for the ceremony are complete. The unorthodox delegation will arrive within 30 minutes. Hearing this, Beakley Woon exclaimed, "Leave the seats for the Mujeong Martial School empty." Yonggun warned, "But even if they arrive at this moment, he absolutely insists they will make it in time, not missing a single one." On the other side, the Unorthodox Alliance leader was amused. "A welcome ceremony, leading me into the Alliance's den wasn't enough. You even stage a reception? That old sword saint must have reached deep cultivation indeed." The great disaster sword dismissed it coldly. "It's just a child's play. They want to apply pressure before negotiations begin." At that moment, a man stepped out and bowed. "We have awaited you for some time." The Unorthodox Alliance leader replied with curiosity, "Who is this? Has the Hidden World strategist come personally to receive an Unorthodox Alliance?" "The Murim Alliance's chief strategist." Ouyang smiled politely and said, "We have prepared a feast to welcome you. Please enter and open the gate." The disciple, receiving the order, replied clearly. The Unorthodox Alliance leader grew more delighted as he stepped through the gate. "This surpasses my expectations." Sword Emperor Beakley Gang saw him and immediately greeted, "Long time no see." The Unorthodox Alliance leader bantered, "Two of the three swords come out to greet me. How generous." Beakley Gang didn't take offense and said, "Please, old man, I'll lead the way." He teased as he walked, "I never thought the day would come when you'd be my guide. I always imagined we'd one day thrust swords into each other's hearts." Sword Empress. She, hearing this, asked, "Are you provoking me?" He laughed loudly and denied it. "Not at all, those people are." The Sword Empress immediately introduced, "They are disciples of the Mujeong Martial School, the youngsters who will step onto the arena this time. What do you think?" The Unorthodox Alliance leader assessed honestly, "You call them the Golden Generation, right? If judged purely by talent, even within our unorthodox ranks, only a handful could match them." She replied, "That is indeed a generous appraisal." Suddenly he lowered his voice, "But matters are even more disappointing than I expected." The Sword Empress asked curiously, "Do you say that because your own chances of winning have diminished?" The Unorthodox Alliance leader answered, "On the contrary, I'm certain I'll win this bet." She was bewildered. What did he mean? He suddenly cut in, "They're here." No sooner had he finished than 5 people were advancing from the distance toward them. In the blink of an eye, they had briskly descended into the square. At the same time, the voice of the Unorthodox Alliance leader rang out, "By the standards of Black Knight, Muryun Martial School still isn't up to snuff." On the other side, Sun Wukang loudly announced, "The captain of Mujeong Martial School, Sun Wukang, together with 5 other disciples, has completed their training and officially returned." He looked at them and thought to himself with a wry smile, "These kids have far exceeded my expectations." In front of the main gate, the atmosphere was unbearably tense. Sun Wukang and his fellow disciples couldn't hide their excitement. One teammate grew worried, reminding them that this was the first time the gate had been opened since the full-scale war began. This event was undoubtedly crucial, and he didn't understand why Sun Wukang wanted to barge in while everything was so chaotic. Sun Wukang only smiled confidently. He recalled the fierce battles of the past week. To him, this was the only way to slip inside without being detected by Captain Thiern Quan. Suddenly, a teammate panicked as they realized they had been spotted in the crowd. Without hesitation, Sun Wukang ordered, "Let's go." At once, the two of them activated light step techniques, soaring into the air and flying over the bewildered crowd. Everyone was utterly astonished by the scene below. The group landed spectacularly in the courtyard, right in front of 2 elders. A voice rang out to announce their identities. It was Sun Wukang, captain of the Muryun Dajang training squad. He and 5 other disciples of Muryun Dajang kneeled together, solemnly declaring they had completed their training and returned at this very moment. Sun Wukang thought to himself that he hadn't expected everyone to have the same idea, which saved him the trouble of searching for them. But then another truth left him stunned. He couldn't believe his eyes. Standing before them was the leader of the Underworld Alliance, and his master as well. Why was his master here? From a distance, Hai Yon watched with a half-smile, silently wishing the juniors luck in keeping their lives. The leader of the Underworld Alliance, the man with a long scar across his face, laughed with amusement. He thought their entrance was quite entertaining, and by underground standards, Muryun's disciples had passed. Ouyang explained that knowing the underworld leader seemed interested in his disciples, they had staged a slightly grander entrance. He appeared very pleased with the result. The underworld leader stared at the kneeling disciples with a sharp gaze and asked one question. "So, do you think you will win?" The group fell silent. He continued, his voice full of pressure, saying he had wagered much on them and therefore deserved to hear an answer. Ouyang only chuckled, calling it a sly question and suggesting they leave it for later. But Sun Wukong raised his head, eyes firm, and declared loudly, "We will win." The smile on the underworld leader's face vanished, replaced by a stern expression. He growled, asking Sun Wukong if he understood the weight of his words. Unfazed, Sun Wukong replied succinctly, "Of course." The underworld leader pressed him further, asking whether he would accept victory even if it meant Murim Alliance would treat them unfairly. Sun Wukong smiled confidently, asserting there would be no unfair treatment to endure, because he proclaimed the joy of victory would belong solely to Muryun Dajeng. Right after that, the group rose as one, showing iron determination. A voice from the school gate called out, questioning whether the group realized what they had just said. Beakley Woon stepped forward, explaining that the declaration had forced everyone who assumed Mujeong Dajeng's victory was certain to now see them as formidable opponents. He continued to scold them, saying they had thrown away an easy chance at victory. He harshly asked if this was the time to be picky about how to win, especially when they wouldn't want to hear Mujeong's excuses that their opponents had let their guard down. Then he softened his tone, telling the group to rest after their hard journey. As for the current situation, he said he would handle it himself. Beakley Woon curled his lip in a smile and muttered that perhaps he should go visit an old friend. Before long he arrived. A voice from ahead asked why he had come. The white-haired man, Chung Ryu, spun around in shock to see Beakley Woon. Beakley calmly sipped his tea and asked if he really needed a reason to visit a friend he hadn't seen in 10 years. He added with a hint of curiosity that he wondered why someone who never cared about teaching others like Chung Ryu had suddenly become an instructor. Chung Ryu smirked, admitting Beakley Woon was still as good at annoying people as ever. Beakley retorted, teasing that his knack for provocation had never lost to Chung Ryu's over the past 10 years and that this was a good opportunity for his old friend. Then Beakley Woon got straight to the point. He proposed holding an inter-school tournament in a 5-on-5 format featuring their best fighters so they wouldn't waste each other's time. Chung Ryu flew into a rage, saying everyone knew Beakley's 11 disciples had fled, leaving only 5. How dare he brazenly suggest that? Beakley Woon just smiled and calmly confirmed, "Yes, that's the situation." Beakley continued to taunt, saying Chung Ryu should see this as a favor he's granting. If they couldn't win even with a numerical advantage, wouldn't that be utterly humiliating? Chung Ryu went pale at that. Chung Ryu skeptically asked if Beakley really thought Muryun Dajeng would win. Beakley answered of course without hesitation, adding that just looking at the person in charge, Chung Ryu, made the outcome obvious. Beakley delivered a killer blow, saying plainly that Chung Ryu had no talent for teaching others. In the past, he always tried to handle things himself and ended up losing to Beakley. How could someone like that possibly instruct anyone? Stung in his pride, Chung Ryu slammed the table, stood up, and growled his refusal to the 5-on-5 match. He blamed Beakley Woon for failing to manage his disciples and ordered his old friend to get lost. Beakley Woon remained unflustered and calmly accepted the refusal. Chung Ryu grew angrier, shouting that Beakley had no right to accept anything. Seeing this, Beakley offered another suggestion. He held up one finger and proposed. For just one day, the two schools would exchange disciples and train each other's students. Chung Ryu brushed it off, insisting Mujeong's victory wouldn't become Beakley's victory. But Beakley Woon countered that when everyone expected Mujeong to win, even if they did, no one would credit Chung Ryu. Beakley argued that the contest already started from unequal starting points. But if the match were held after making these conditions public, the whole story would change. Chung Ryu frowned, catching Beakley's implication. Was he saying that by observing Mujeong's disciples for a single day, he could overturn both the numeric disadvantage and the gap in individual skill? Exactly, Beakley Woon smiled meaningfully. He said it would not only make the match fairer but also served as a generous gesture between old friends. Then he sealed it with a provocative question, or, "Are you afraid you'll lose?" The provocation worked. Chung Ryu could no longer contain himself, bellowing, "Beakley Woon," and wondering how far this old friend intended to push him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, warm water gurgled in a bathtub. San was soaking and relaxing, herbal blue water enveloping her body. She sighed. She knew that even if she went to see Beakley Woon right now, he wouldn't answer. Her plan to track Beakley Woon down for answers had been accelerated unexpectedly, but she thought, fine by me. She would crush Muryeon Dajang's disciples. After that, she'd ask him, what exactly did he want that was worth abandoning his whole clan for? Until then, she wouldn't meet him. San told herself she needed to focus. The next day, at Mujeong's training yard, Beakley Woon arrived as he had challenged, smiling as he greeted the disciples. He loudly introduced himself as Beakley Woon and declared he would be in charge of today's training. All of Mujeong's disciples, including San, were stunned. The silence was suffocating. One of the disciples, Chung Jeong, loudly demanded to know why they had to receive training from an instructor of the rival Muryeon Dajang. From the back, Chung Ryu roared angrily, snapping that this was an opportunity he had struggled to create to broaden their horizons. Just knowing a bit about Mujeong's disciples wouldn't change anything. Beakley Woon turned his back, calmly saying that they were his juniors anyway and he would do them no harm. He gave them a choice. If they didn't trust him, they could step aside. The crowd fell silent. Seeing that no one stepped away, Beakley Woon smiled and called Chung Jeong by name to step forward. He announced that from now on they would spar with him in turn. He promised to lower his level to match theirs as much as possible and challenged them to hold their ground. Without hesitation, Chung Jeong let out a roar and charged. He launched a flurry of ferocious attacks. But Beakley Woon simply dodged lightly, moving like a leaf in the wind, then suddenly countered with a precise strike to Chung Jeong's face. Chung Jeong reeled. He couldn't believe it. Beakley Woon had said he'd fight at the same level, yet he couldn't even touch a hair on him. Chung Jeong realized this man was his worst nemesis. While Chung Jeong knelt there in utter bewilderment, Beakley Woon smiled and asked nonchalantly, "Who's next?" Another disciple rushed forward, but Beakley Woon needed only to flick his sleeve to effortlessly nullify his attack. With just a few simple moves, Beakley Woon defeated another person and called, "Next!" So it went. One by one they surged forward in fury, and one by one they were swiftly defeated. Beakley Woon's "next" rang out steadily, coldly across the training yard. Before long, all the challenging disciples lay sprawled on the ground. They were completely shocked. Some began whispering that this man was too strong, perhaps even stronger than their instructor Chung Ryu. Beakley Woon smiled and asked if there was anyone else. He mentally assessed that everyone's fundamentals were decent but still lacking. He noted that if Xian Wugang trained diligently at this level for 2 years, he would become very strong. Seeing no one else speak up, Beakley Woon intended to end today's training there. But suddenly a shout rang out, "Not finished yet." A sword flew down from the sky and slammed into the ground right in front of Beakley Woon. A challenging voice asked why everyone else had been assigned to fight but she had not. Beakley Woon turned, a smile still on his lips. He greeted her in a strangely calm voice, "Long time no see." He called her name, San. The girl stood there with her hand on the sword's hilt, her gaze icy. Killing intent surged violently from San. She ground out each word, her eyes flashing. "If you don't want to die, draw your sword." The recollection begins at the Beakley household, where little Miss San is being stubbornly resolute. The girl adamantly refuses to study. San rolls on the floor throwing a tantrum, screaming to be let outside to play. The maid can only helplessly plead and remind her that as a noble young lady she cannot neglect her studies. She buries her face in the floor, mumbling that if Mother were here, Mother would surely allow her to go out and play. Suddenly, a whispering voice is heard. Young Master Beakley Woon cheekily signals for silence and tempts San to sneak outside with him. Hearing the offer, San's eyes light up with hopeful anticipation. And so, Beakley Woon carries her on his back and secretly slips out into the night to stroll the streets. He tells her to keep this a secret from the servants. Amidst the festive air, Woon promises San that whenever she wants, he'll take her out to play. San joyfully screams her agreement. That night, San lies in bed unable to sleep. She tosses and turns, thinking about where to take her brother the next day. Half asleep, a maid bursts in a panic, shakes San awake, and reports that something terrible has happened. She stammers out an earth-shattering piece of news. Young Master Beakley Woon has disappeared. San is struck dumb, not understanding what's going on. 12 years later, in another place, a voice calls out the name Beakley San. The caller is a male disciple. He wonders to see San, now a young woman, here. He'd heard she enrolled at the Mujeong Martial School. San coolly asks what he is doing here. She gives no answer, silently wrapping bandages around her hands, crisscrossed with scratches, the marks of relentless training. In the training yard, San emits a powerful aura and growls that he shouldn't disturb her while she's practicing. The young man can only sigh, muttering that she has changed so much she seems to have forgotten how to enjoy life. A red gleam flashes in San's eyes. The memory of her brother's disappearance long ago is the reason she became like this. Back to the present, she is confronting Beakly Woon. San points her sword straight at her opponent, eyes sharp, ordering, "Draw your sword." The one standing before her is none other than Beakly Woon, the brother who vanished years ago. He smiles and casually says it's been a long time. Without a word, San immediately launches an attack. Two streams of sword chi clash in fiery sparks. San unleashes a barrage of crafty moves, but Beakly Woon calmly defends, effortlessly neutralizing all her strikes. She roars and executes a powerful technique called White Flower Chaos, white sword airs surging like a tempest. The technique's force causes a massive explosion, sending rocks and dust flying across the training ground. When the dust clears, San is panting from exhaustion. Beakly Woon still stands unmoved, unharmed. He calmly praises her for training so diligently. Then, he suddenly asks why she used the H letter 1 ECF, a B letter 1 EA 1 CH Hoa technique. The question hits San's old wound, leaving her stunned, her expression a mix of shock and fury. Beakly Woon coldly explains that it is a pure yang martial art using overpowering force, completely inappropriate for a woman. His words pour fuel on the fire. San screams, demanding by what right he judges her. "You abandoned me," San shouts in rage, swinging her sword even more fiercely. Woon can only call her name in astonishment. San's anger peaks as she recalls the old promise that he would take her out whenever she wanted. She challenges him to try to make an excuse, shouting the question she has buried for 12 years. "Why did you leave the family?" Faced with his sister's question, Woon could only dodge the blow and awkwardly reply that he couldn't tell her. That vague answer only made San angrier. She curled a bitter smile and said she knew he'd answer that way. San gave him no chance. She closed in and unleashed a flurry of continuous strikes. Her powerful kicks forced Woon to keep retreating defensively. Gripping his sword, San snarled, asking how long he planned to defend. Was it because he didn't want to hurt her? Then she unleashed her ultimate move. A torrent of black cheese swelled from her body, forming a gigantic beast that roared and charged at Woon. The terrifying power of San's technique enveloped the entire arena. Beakly Woon realized this was a secret art he'd never seen before. Confronted with the destructive attack, for the first time Beakly Woon had to draw the sword on his back and use all his strength to stop the black beast. A single slash completely dispelled San's ultimate. The watching disciples exclaimed in shock, "Master," finally drew his sword. Beakly Woon sweatily thought that this fire world technique didn't match what he knew. He was amazed San had managed to invent a new skill on her own. Having expended all her strength and been countered, San coughed up blood, her body staggering. She collapsed, propping her sword on the ground, bitterly admitting she could never beat him. That would always be the truth. But then San lifted her head, her eyes still burning with hatred. She declared that apart from Woon, no one at Marion's school could be her rival. San's words made Beakly Woon pause. He seemed to grasp the implication. She was hinting that Marion would surely lose. San slumped but forced herself up, asserting she would not let his school win. The match ended and the other disciples hurried to support her. Woon watched silently, thinking to himself that San had grown up a great deal since he last saw her. Memories flooded back. Once little San had held a wooden sword, eager to show him her skills, yet now they had become enemies. Back in the present, Woon turned to the murmuring disciples, shot them a sharp look, and asked if they weren't going to train anymore. He declared the session not over. He ordered everyone to practice on their own and to come to him if they had any questions. Suddenly, a disciple named Ping Jin loudly asked the question no one dared. "Why did you leave home 25 years ago?" The 25 years differed from the 12 years in San's memory, hinting at a deeper mystery. Namgung Hyun hurried over to apologize, saying Ping Jin was simply tactless. But Beakly Woon only smiled, replying that curiosity about his past was natural. Inwardly, Woon quietly apologized to San. He couldn't reveal the truth, for doing so would render his mother's protective efforts for her meaningless. At that moment, Namgung Hyun, who had been watching from afar, stepped forward and said he wanted to ask Woon a few things. Woon noted Hyun's brusque tone, but Hyun said that's just his nature. Woon asked what he wanted. Hyun said he had something to say about what Woon had mentioned earlier, but Woon cut him off, saying there was nothing to discuss with outsiders. Hyun insisted he had the standing to speak. He analyzed that with the current disciple's strength, Marion's chances of winning the tournament were very low. Therefore, he had a request. Woon guessed Hyun wanted him to give up. But no, Hyun made an unimaginable plea. He bowed his head and earnestly begged Woon to defeat Mujeong's school in this tournament. Woon was completely surprised. Hyun explained that Beakley-san had changed too much from when she was a child. He hadn't understood before, but after witnessing today's match, he was certain. The sole reason San swung her sword and plunged into frenzied training was her hatred toward Woon. As long as that hatred is directed at Woon, even if Mujeong's school wins overwhelmingly, that grudge will never fade. So there's only one way. He bowed his head once more, crush Mujeong's school. Beakley Woon looked puzzled, asking why Hyun would go that far for San. Hyun merely smiled and replied that he could not allow it to happen. Beakley Woon wondered if it was because Hyun was betrothed to San. He then asked what the real reason was. Hyun's memory returned. As a child, San had happily run over to invite him for sparring. Back in the present, Hyun smiled gently and answered, because she was my first friend. He knew it was an unreasonable request. Mujeong was very strong and he himself was an outstanding disciple, but he still hoped Beakley Woon wouldn't give up easily. Beakley Woon replied that Hyun needn't have asked. Beakley Woon tilted a confident smirk and declared, besides, we're going to win anyway. At a bustling market, accountant Jang hesitated in front of a hairpin stall. The price 7 Jeon 9 Nyang gave him pause. His face tightened, looking both stingy and slightly annoyed. The vendor, seeing his hesitation, called the next customer over to look. Provoked, accountant Jang hurriedly decided to buy one. Leaving the stall, he complained that the Muram Alliance area was too crowded. There wasn't even a vacancy at the inns. Luckily, he found an eatery and asked for a seat. The owner said all tables were taken but suggested he could share with someone. Accountant Jang seemed displeased by the idea but accepted. The owner told him to wait a moment while he asked permission. The person at the table was a long-haired man wearing an eye patch, looking very convivial. But Jang had a bad feeling, guessing this man would strike up a conversation during the meal. He politely declined and started to look for elsewhere, but the stranger quickly called him back. The man warmly insisted Jang sit, insisting there were truly no other seats. Unable to resist the stranger's enthusiasm, accountant Jang sat down. No sooner had he sat than the stranger ordered. He not only called for a bowl of samyeon but also pork with 5 spices, startling Jang a little. Seeing Jang worried about money, the man generously declared he would pay for the meal, calling it fate. Jang gladly accepted. The stranger suddenly asked Jang's name. When Jang looked cautious, he explained that since he was paying, he should at least know the name of his dining companion. Jang introduced himself as accountant. Seeing the stranger seemed knowledgeable about sect affairs, Jang opened up. He revealed he had a disciple at Muryeon Hall named Dan Lyon. Hearing this, the stranger suddenly leaned forward in astonishment and loudly asked if Jang was Dan Lyon's master. But when Jang asked back, he casually replied, "No, I don't know." The unexpected jest made Jang jump. The man only laughed and told him to sit as the food arrived. While eating, the stranger suddenly mentioned a rumor that Muryeon Hall was at a disadvantage. The remark froze accountant Jang. Jang sadly admitted it might be because his disciples didn't come from a prestigious sect. The stranger then bluntly asked if Jang thought Muryeon Hall would lose. Contrary to expectation, he declared firmly, "Of course Muryeon Hall will win." Jang was so surprised he thought he'd misheard and that the man had said Mujeong Hall would win. Jang awkwardly said there was no need to humor him. The truth was Muryeon Hall was weaker. The man replied enigmatically that he had no reason to care about Jang's expression. Jang pressed him on why he believed so strongly in Muryeon Hall. The stranger explained that in team battles, collective strength is the decisive factor. Jang remained unconvinced, saying Mujeong Hall's collective power was not inferior. The man only smiled and murmured that in Muryeon Hall there was someone who never entered a fight he couldn't win. Only then did accountant Jang realize he still didn't know his companion's name. The man had joked at first, calling himself the charming young master, but at Jang's seriousness he decided to tell the truth. After a brief hesitation, he revealed his name as Sion. Then with a mysterious smile, he gave his full name. "I am called Beakley Sion." At the same time, elsewhere, someone settled on a rooftop, yawned, and looked toward the arena. Finally, the friendly match was about to begin. In the observation area, the leader of the Black Path Alliance sat comfortably, being reminded by another to keep decorum. He waved it off, claiming no one was paying attention. The other man, Great Disaster Sword, replied solemnly that a person's everyday conduct shows even in public, and small mistakes accumulate. The Alliance leader only gave a perfunctory response. The Black Path Alliance leader changed the subject, asking Great Disaster Sword what he thought of this match. He specifically mentioned a Hall disciple who had boldly declared he'd win from day one. Great Disaster Sword admitted that disciple's talent for suppression and killing even surpassed his own, but he added that such childish antics didn't matter. The only thing he wished for was that his disciple's weak nature would be corrected. The Alliance leader scoffed at his coldness, then brought up their ceasefire agreement, which hinged on Hall winning. The Black Path Alliance leader laughed with glee. He declared the ceasefire would be signed regardless of who won. What he truly wanted was merely to create a small ripple on this calm lake. He stood and announced it was time to see what that guy had planned. Meanwhile, in Hall's preparation area, Beakley Woon asked his disciples if they were ready. He encouraged them, recalling their relentless efforts up to now. He insisted that having lost before didn't mean they'd fail this time. With a confident smile, Beakley Woon declared that even if they were shattered 99 times, the one who wins in the end is the true victor. He signaled, "Go and prove it." The Hall disciples marched into the arena to thunderous cheers. The gates opened, revealing the vast arena. The command "Enter" rang out. Hall's team registered. Captain Sunwoo Kang and 4 others were present, only 5 people. Immediately after, Hall's team registered. Captain Namgung Hyun and 15 others, an overwhelming numerical disparity. The martial leader began the opening address. He emphasized this was a friendly match, a playground where disciples from both academies might one day be teammates. He explained the winner would gain confidence and vigilance, while the loser would gain righteous anger and motivation. Although things have changed this year, what must be done remains the same. His sole admonition was, "Do your best." The entire arena echoed the call. Soon after, he declared the friendly match officially begun. A colossal stone steel emitted fierce purple energy. The disciples were stunned by the spectacle. Beakley Woon calmly explained it was an illusion talisman. He added that to assess overall combat ability, the judges needed to grasp everything happening on the field. Therefore, both academies would enter the Chi image formation to carry out the test. Illusion talismans rose, emitting purple magical currents that blanketed the space. The formation activated. A blinding light enveloped the disciples. The first task was announced: seize the secret manual. The setting was the tomb of Jeolgeum, one of the 10 heavens who vanished 200 years ago, now targeted by evil sects. The objective was clear: protect Jeolgeum's secret manual before anyone else gets it. The magical light engulfed the disciples, officially placing them inside the illusion formation. When the light faded, Namgung Hyun opened his eyes. Around him was the impenetrable darkness of an ancient tomb. Without hesitation, he ordered the teams to report their status. Inside the tomb, Hall's team quickly took attendance. All members were present and safe. Namgung Hyun ordered a member named Dangseol to disarm the trap mechanisms. The girl replied that simple mechanisms were manageable, but the problem was they were likely mixed with the illusion formation, so they needed to be very careful. Hyun decided Team 2 would handle disarming the mechanisms, while the others stood watch from behind and followed. A plan formed in his mind. He analyzed that Hall's team was both fewer in number and individually weaker. Therefore, their only methods could be ambushes or traps. So he decided to use his numerical advantage to focus on finding the secret manual first, avoiding direct confrontation. The trap disarm team reported the small traps could be easily neutralized. However, they discovered a bigger problem. The supporting pillars here were very weak. If one broke, the others seemed likely to collapse as well. Just as one member said there was no need to worry too much, a horrifying sound rang out, shaking the entire tomb. Dust billowed everywhere. Through the dust and smoke, a familiar voice called Namgung Hyun's name. He froze and turned to look at the figure who had appeared. It was Sunwoo Kang. Namgung Hyun couldn't understand why the opponent looked so disheveled. Kang casually replied that he'd just broken a few mechanisms. The entire Hall team was shocked. Cut to outside, Beakley Woon was explaining strategy to the other disciples. He said large-scale illusion techniques consume massive resources, so the organizers couldn't pour too much power into intricate mechanisms. Most traps would be poison rather than physically destructive. Thus his plan was simple. Sunwoo Kang, with his abundant internal power, would use strength to resist the poison and charge straight through. Hearing this, the other disciples couldn't believe it. Back inside the tomb, Namgung Hyun thought the same. He shouted that Seonwoo Kang was crazy, but then had to admit he agreed with that assessment. Still, Hyun quickly composed himself. He smirked, praised Kang's courage for coming alone, and declared he would capture Kang alive first to interrogate him. A powerful aura surged from Seonwoo Kang as he cultivated. He lunged forward, but his target was not Namgung Hyun. Kang curled his lip and confidently said, "I don't think that's going to happen." He swung his sword, but not to attack the opponent. Namgung Hyun yelled, not understanding what Kang was doing. The Mujang Hall team panicked. They realized Kang's intention. "Are you going to sacrifice yourself to kill us all?" But Seonwoo Kang only muttered the word sacrifice oddly. He roared, "This is a tactic," and delivered a thunderous punch to the load-bearing pillar. Namgung Hyun only managed to shout Kang's name. Seonwoo Kang's blow split the pillar open instantly. The entire structure began to quake violently. The tomb ceiling started to collapse. Boulders rained down like a storm, burying both teams. Amid the chaos, Seonwoo Kang wore a mad grin and proclaimed, "Shall we change the stage a bit then?"